Oh yeah. Happy Sunday. Hey sis, thanks man. I appreciate it. I didn't even realize it until you just said that. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. All right. You're gonna get to see me in my most fashionable pajamas because after I got done today, I was not putting on anything that was less than the most comfortable clothes I had. Ah, dang it. Everything's out of alignment. There we go. That's it. Right about. Not gonna let me resize this. Oh, weird. All right. Got the pajama reveal. This shirt, I think I've had this shirt probably 20 years. And it's all just beat to hell. There's a hole in it down here. I don't give a damn. It is so comfortable. Until this shirt has a catastrophic failure, I'm going to keep wearing it. What's up, everyone? Hope you're all having a great Sunday and y'all had a good Thanksgiving. We had a pretty good one. Just kept it chill and hanging out with family. But, man, I apologize for not having a stream last night, but I was not really in a good mood. So we went up to Oklahoma for a cross-country ATV race. It was in Oklahoma City, and I know I always talk a lot of crap about Oklahoma to my friends who are from Oklahoma, but I realized that was entirely insufficient, and so I told them I'm going to redouble my efforts to talk more shit about Oklahoma because that race was an absolute dumpster fire. Oh my god! And at one point, hang on. Let me see if I can find this picture real quick. Let me see if I've got it. Yep, there it is. So there's a picture of me. I'm literally walking on the kids' track. Not near the track. This was the kids' racing track where my son would have been racing. See that little blue arrow right there? This little blue arrow? That's their cue to turn left past the toolbox and between the toolbox and the fucked up go-kart. Dude, I was pissed. And so I found this out after we had already driven to get there. It was a 3-hour drive, loaded up the trailer, checked everything. One of the other parents that I knew said, "Hey, by the way, you should go walk the kids' track. Just FYI." So I go over there and I walk it, and I was so fucking pissed. And to top it off, not only was that track absolute hot garbage, but there's one point where the track was too narrow for my son's four-wheeler to fit through. He's got a wide wheelbase. It's about 50 inches. And he couldn't even fit through the track if we'd wanted him to. He may have been able to squeak by with like 1 inch on each side from these trees. Oh, dude. And then on top of that, we camped out in the trailer, which has no heater, and it was 38 degrees. So I didn't come home in a real great mood on Saturday. So I was exhausted from just putting up with that bullshit. I said, okay, I gotta take last night off. But I'm back. I'm good. Got to spend the day with the family. Everything's fine. This is fine. And you know what's funny though? After I told my friends that live in Oklahoma this, so like, hey, by the way, I realized I'm not ripping on Oklahoma enough after this experience. I'm gonna increase that output. You know what they said? They said, yeah, that's about right. And I had the realization, Oklahoma is the Java of the United States. If you go rip on any other state, they're going to be like, screw you, my state's awesome, but they're going to start listing off the merits of it. you go rip on any coding language, they're going to say, screw you, here's why my coding language is great and I really like it and yada yada. Java developers don't do that. People from Oklahoma don't do that. Oklahoma is the Java of the United States. That was my big revelation from this experience. Fucking Java and Oklahoma. That was my weekend. Oh man. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to jumping into the news. I wanted to see what I missed for this week. Let's see. I wanted to do a Thursday night stream also, like a surprise Thanksgiving stream. It just didn't happen. Gotta love hating on Java, dude. It's not so much that it's so fun hating on Java, even though it is craptacular. It's the fact that the Java developers are like, yeah, we know. At least they're self-aware of it, right? God, that was the first and last time I'm ever going to that race. God, it was so bad. So some of the other folks that race in the league that we race in Texas were there, and that was who told me, hey, you should go walk the kids track and check it out ahead of time. And I told the mother who told me this, I told her, it's like, when I get back, I'm going to go up to the fellow who runs it. I was like, I'm just going to give him a big old surprise hug and a big old just wet kiss on the cheek, just for having the awesome organization. And the organization is phenomenal. The organization out there was horrendous. The track layout was horrendous. And on top of that, it was only a 20-minute race. And so the kids are used to doing at least 30 minutes with like a 15 to 20-minute warm-up. I was like, bro. Ew, Java apps. Yeah, Bobby, it was. But you know what? At least we learned one thing, though, that sleeping in that trailer in about down to at least 38 degrees, that's how cold it got, wasn't so bad. Only downside was I need to wear a second pair of socks. My toes got cold. The rest of me was warmed up. I was in a shirt and then a hoodie and then a toboggan. I had the hoodie up and like tied up, so like just this part was showing. And then my sleeping bag has like one of those hoods on it too. And I was nestled in that sucker and I had that pulled up. I was just like a mummy in that thing. I was pretty warm except for my toes. I was doing all right. All right, well, let's go ahead and hop into the news. Enough of me belly aching about the weekend. God, I wish we'd just gone to our regular MX track and just practiced. Ugh. All right. I did go full Eskimo mode, Bobby. Yeah, I was bundled up. And like my buddies were saying, I can't do that because I'm worried I'm gonna. I feel like I'm being suffocated. I was like, I don't give a shit. I want to be warm. Okay, let's hop in. Let's see what we got here for the news. I had not even looked at this yet, so it looks like it's probably a light news week. Looking like, especially with it being Thanksgiving, you know, even hackers want to go have some turkey. All right, let's see. Phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication success story. USDA's Fast Identity Online implementation. If the USDA can roll out FIDO multi-factor that is phishing resistant, so can you. Now, actually, I know a couple of guys, one of them being Kuba Gretzky, who wrote Evil Jinx. They're looking at some ways you might be able to bypass FIDO. And remember, when it comes to multi-factor, one of the big downsides to it is it might not be implemented everywhere. So if you have valid credentials for a user, you can sometimes find a place where you can use them, most frequently, where MFA is not enabled or supported. So you can kind of get around that. So let's just take a quick look at this one. Curious about this. Oh, is this from CISA? Okay. So the USDA's over 130,000 employees have unique technical needs to do their job. USDA can't exclusively rely on personal identity verification cards to authenticate or prove who employees are to access government systems. That's because USDA has seasonal employees who cannot receive the same PIV credentials as full-time government employees due to security and administrative concerns. Okay. All of a sudden my nose started itching. So, let's see. These circumstances push the USDA to develop a technical solution to provide the same protections as PIV I don't know if they realize what that acronym means on the internet versus how they're using it here. Just saying. Let's see. Solution needed to be phishing-resistant authentication, allowing users to authenticate without the threat of malicious actors tricking them into supplying login credentials. Additionally, the ability to provide multi-factor authentication was a key requirement. You know, a thought just occurred to me about thinking about this. Because they're using FIDO, which is awesome. Cool. But if y'all didn't know this, cracking TO. I think this is it. There actually is a way to crack TOTP secrets with Hashcat. If y'all didn't know that. Hang on, let me plug my headphones in. They're dying on me. Ah, there we go. Let's see. Yeah, so actually, we'll go read over this real fast because I want to refresh on this because it's cool. So if you're not familiar with how TOTP actually, let's look at this real quick. So the way this stands for is TOTP is time something temporary password. Time oriented, time objective. Anyway, what happens is you're given some kind of a seed value. And the seed value, let's say just for sake of an example, is 1, 2, 3, 4. What happens here is you might think, okay, well, cool, what's the seed value? Well, a lot of people don't know this, but computers suck at randomness. So randoms for computers equals sucks. So what they do is they actually use something called a pseudo-random. Pseudo-random algorithm. And the reason it's pseudo-random is because you take this seed value, you plug it in here, and the numbers it spits out appear to be random. However, if you use the same seed value again and again, you get the same string of numbers, the same output to it. So what happens is the server keeps a copy of the seed value, you're given a copy of the seed value, and then now you have that as a rolling authentication code. So what happens is if you can take a couple of these codes, let's say you get code 1 and you get a timestamp with it. And if you can duplicate this, or let's say, that's a horrible one. So you have code 1, and let's say you get code 2, and you get code 3. What you can do is actually take these and you can plug them over into Hashcat, and it can try to recover the seed value. Because if you get the seed value, then you might as well just have access to the multi-factor. Really, the TOTP is just a way for it to be a rolling code. The real thing is, it's like another password just with this seed value here. So that was actually something pretty cool. So we'll read through this real quick, but hold on. Montague's got a question. Can you tell me how to develop a hacker mindset and be faster? I practice and study a lot, but I still feel like I'm weak. So, okay, Montague, the hacker mindset really is just one of curiosity. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because it can either bite you in the ass or it can lead you along to doing really cool things. So the hacker mindset is a lot of asking, what if? So let's say, for example, you check into a hotel and they give you a cool little RFID card that you use to get into your room. And you say, okay, well, hey, what if I was to look up what kind of card this is? Could I possibly clone it? Some of them are clonable, some of them aren't. Spoiler alert, a lot of the ones in the hotels are. But it's just asking like, hey, what if somebody wanted to try to do this thing? How would they go about accomplishing it? So a lot of it is looking at stuff, not necessarily in a linear fashion, but looking at it as, okay, I want to get from here to here. What steps can I take non-linearly to get there? How do I develop my hacker mindset? Is wanting to do illegal things by SM, damn it. Like building a scientific experiment. Yeah, heal, exactly. Sometimes that's exactly kind of what it is. Or the Socratic method, yeah. I'm trying to think of a really solid example that I might give. Okay, so for example, little short story that I heard on a YouTube short. Kid gets busted with his cell phone in the school. This was back in the day, whenever cell phones were restricted and you couldn't have them in the school. So it gets confiscated till the end of the day. Well, he goes and, or I think till maybe the next day. But anyway, his phone's been confiscated. It's in the teacher's lounge. So this kid goes over there and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to copy my dad's phone number out of my cell phone real fast." So the teacher gives him the phone, and he puts it in his pocket like, "Okay, got it, thanks." And they stop him and like, "Oh, haha, very funny." He's like, "Yeah, you caught me." Pulls out a phone and gives it back to him, but it's a different phone. He gives them a broken version of his same phone. So he just did a little sleight of hand on it right there. It's stuff like that, thinking, "Hey, how can I potentially slip one past in order to accomplish my objective?" That's really what a lot of the mindset is. I want to do it and get away with it. Damn it, SM. I have done some hack the box, Montague. When I get a little bored and like, "Hey, I don't know what else to do. Let's go hop in there and do those. Go do those." I don't do a lot of the typical hack the box though. I typically stick to the ones that are like Windows based exploitation. I've done a lot of Linux stuff, and there's a lot of really badass things you can do in Linux. A lot of people think of it as a more secure computing platform, and it can be if you configure it right. So that's why a lot of people really like Linux, is because it gives you a lot of extra, I don't know, goodies that you can use. Windows is actually in some ways more difficult to navigate and deal with since it is closed source. Same thing with Mac, right? Mac actually takes security very seriously. So they, in Linux and even in Windows, like if you want to go get into the kernel, you can do that. Mac is like, "No, you stay the hell out of the kernel. If you weren't code written by Apple, you stay the hell out of the kernel." So back to your original question, I would say the biggest driver to kind of building that mentality is look for things you're not supposed to do, particularly with technology, maybe not everywhere, and just think about it. Okay, what could I do to maybe circumvent this? How could I get around it? I do have a LinkedIn, but I don't really. There's a LinkedIn for BlazeBits. I did finally go make a Blue Sky account. A couple of y'all were asking me about that, so there is a BlazeBits on Blue Sky as well. Pretty much, I just take whatever I'm gonna post on X Twitter and I throw it onto Blue Sky also. That's about it. So sometimes it's memes, sometimes it's stuff I was talking about. Actually, I put out one that was fairly well received, and I said I would, since it was Thanksgiving, I put out a post that said, "Hey, I was really thankful that I did not get my dream job a year ago." So the company I'm at now, I applied to back in 2023, and I did not get picked up there. Um, Thanks for coming online, Montague. Appreciate it, man. So I didn't get picked up there. So then, actually, during that time, but because you had to wait a year to reapply, uh, I came through and worked hard. It was in Q4 about the time I found out. So the Q4 crunch for pen testing was on full swing. But then started up doing the streaming. So I had a lot of time to focus on improving my own skill set. We went through the Red Team Ops course from 0 Point Security. And because how well we beat that up, it did really well. An anonymous gifter has gifted a subscription to Trump body pillow salesman. You fucking trolls. Love it. It's been a long time since someone did a troll gift sub. I appreciate it. Montague. So that is a perfect example. Hold on. I think y'all can see this over in the chat, but in case you can't, hold on. I'm going to bring this over here. So right here, this section right here, this is an example of how could I get around something in that hacker mindset. So whoever anonymous gifter is says, "Hey, I want to troll in some way with something about Trump." And sometimes there's like word filters on different Twitch channels, and like the word Trump is banned, right? So that's just the example they chose. But one thing they can do is, if they're willing to go spend $5, they can go through and they can gift a sub to their own user account probably with a funny username. Here. So this is something like the hacker mindset. It's like, hey, how do I get around the restrictions of I don't want the message to be banned? And how do I do this? So there we go. You'll crack me up. Almost as bad as when Euler's in here dropping bits, like one bit at a time just to hear the bit sound. Oh, so on the news topic, I'm interested to know with what prevalence you've seen passkeys implemented in the enterprise. I feel like adoption has been really slow, going from getting phishing-resistant factors in place like fingerprint, retina, in lieu of traditional passwords. So actually, Google put out an article about that, Bobby, talking about that for some reason, passkey implementation has been really slow. And I personally, I use them sometimes. When it makes sense, I use them. I use them for certain situations. I don't use them everywhere. Somewhere I just want a standard TOTP. Other places I do want a passkey, stuff like that. So I'm not sure how well it's been. I don't have a good frame of reference, Bobby, because I've always worked in security industries. So they've always been trying to implement like the really, really advanced stuff that's going to help kind of keep them on the edge, right? Let me see if I can find that real quick. Google article on passkey adoption. See, this one's much newer because I saw this one a long time ago. It's 400 million Google accounts use passkeys. Yeah. But there was one that I was reading, and so this is actually really good. So this is probably more timely than that article I had read, Bobby. But at least on Hacker News here, Google's at least saying like many of the Google accounts are using passkeys. I've got passkeys on mine because it's just much simpler than trying to go get the long ass randomly generated password out of a vault and do it. So. All right, so yeah, I wanted to actually. This was really cool. So this was several years ago, right? Because this was DEF CON 26. Yeah. Let's see. So this RFC. So he's saying RFC 6238 comes up. This RFC defines the open standard for time-based one-time passwords. Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, time-based one-time passwords. That's TOTP. Couldn't remember the acronym. Do a mover. Let's see. Yeah, so some people were convinced TOTP implementations are flawed and others were not. So we can break the security model by generating the same TOTP codes as a particular target. So after a bit of testing, I submitted attack mode 18100 to Hashcat. Now this one doesn't work. If you're familiar with Hashcat, it doesn't work in the same way that cracking a hash actually does. It's a bit weird. It actually dumps files onto disk, and there's some manual checks that go along with it, but it supposedly works. I never tested it fully myself. So they start with a secret for, according to the RFC. It's just a base 32 encoded value. So this really could be anything, but for the most implementations have standardized to default encoding a random 10-byte value. So that leaves us with 16 bytes of encoded text. We then take the HMAC of our counter using an encoded secret key and call it this. Boom. So here he just gives an example of it. I want to see his Hashcat though. Okay, so for this test, we'll take our raw secret and base 32 encode it to produce this string. So this represents our target secret that we hope to recover. In the wild, it would be sitting on some remote resource responsible for authentication. Yeah. So next, we need 2 TOTP codes derived from this secret. It's a lot easier than it seemed for these codes. Now, the reason this whole thing came to mind again, this article, is because I was just thinking, as we're thinking about phishing-resistant TOTP, one of the things that might be handy in a phishing context is if you had it look like it was trying to log in and you have it load like a loading screen and wait for a few seconds and then reply back, there was a MFA error, please wait for the code to cycle and enter again. Bam! Then you've got 2 of those codes right there. So you're going to have their username, their password, and you're going to have their a chance to break their TOTP secret. Ooh, I like this idea. Oh, good. I got that in just under the wire for the ads. But in case I hadn't said it, happy Sunday, everyone, and I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hey, Heelstone, I'll get to your question here after the ads run, so that way you'll catch it, okay? They're gonna run or not? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is funny. He talks about something just as simple as maybe a video or a picture of someone's TOTP client would be sufficient, as the picture usually has like a metadata time coded. So really that's all you need. You have 2 codes, 2 timestamps. You can go through and do this attack. This is a really cool attack. So, man. Oh. There's a coming up another event. I don't know if I'm going to go to another ATV race. We'll see. Thankfully, oh, hold on. After the ads are done. Okay, after the ads are done, I'm going to answer Heel's question, and then I got to tell y'all about some cool shit that went down on Wednesday, like under the wire, our last day of testing right before we hopped into the holiday. I got a funny story for y'all. And by the way, Trump's body pillow wants to ask any questions. I mean, feel free. You got it. You're not on the ad watch list, so you can go ahead and ask. The ad watch list. That almost sounds like it's government list. You're on the watch list. Oh, that's right. I see what he did here. Okay. I read this article many years ago, and I'm trying to refresh myself on it real quick, because it was really cool, and a lot of people don't know about this this hashcat mode. What was it? 18100? Yeah, 18100. Oh, all right, cool. Now the ads are done. All right. So Heelstone asked, do you consider a major difference between full technical hacks versus ones that require social engineering? I've seen stories of hackers tricking users into giving their codes voluntarily. Oh, dude, that happens all the time. And typically, a lot of organizations aren't... It kind of is a mixed bag when it comes to social engineering. Some of them want it, and those are usually the companies that we don't want to do it with. And then because they have really well-trained people, and some absolutely want to avoid it because they know they're going to fail it. It's kind of one of those weird situations whenever you're working with clients that want to do phishing. Now, one of the downsides to doing social engineering is the setup ahead of time can be pretty time intensive, especially for the amount of activity you get for it. So, typically, if I can find some other way other than social engineering, I'm gonna take it. Social engineering can be very powerful, but it can also be a massive pain in the ass whenever you're time limited. You know, if an attacker is trying to get into your network, they always have that benefit of time, and they can really use that to leverage against you. Hey, Hellhound, what's up, dude? So, yeah, man, it's kind of crazy. Let's see. Oh, okay. So hold on. Before I get back into the TOTP cracking, it can be Hillstone. So I'll give you an example. One of the last social engineering jobs I did at my last company, we couldn't get through to the help desk, and so they really specifically wanted us to go try and get information from the help desk. And no matter how many times we tried to call them, we set up a fake VoIP system, had a DID set up so we could just call out to them and they could call back, and it was just failing hard. And so finally we found out, hey, if we call the receptionist will forward us over to them. We didn't know that their phone system says the call was forwarded from the receptionist. So that instantly put up a red flag, like, why didn't they just call us directly? And they strung us along, like milking us for like information on what we're trying to get and stuff. They did a really good job on it, which was very funny because in other aspects they did terribly. But on their social engineering, they did exceptionally well. So that was actually really cool to see. But sometimes that's kind of what you run up against, or clients that do want it. Um, and it's funny because it really is just it's a large numbers game. McGurk's Tweak Town method. We want the funk. What's up, man? Thanks for coming online. Yeah. Hey, no worries, man. Okay, so I got to tell you about some fun stuff we did. So one of the really cool things I like about the new outfit I'm at is when we sit down and we discuss the engagement with our clients, we specifically lay out our objectives. We'll have like a primary, a secondary, and like some tertiary objectives in there. And so we're very object oriented on like, hey, this is how we're going to go look at this and different things we can do. We had a blast with it. There was a lot of, I don't want to go into too many details, but there was some really cool Active Directory tricks we were able to do with it. Some really weird permission sets we found in the environment. And so now that we found it, they're going to be able to go clean it up. So that's cool. But one of the other things we found was we were trying to get into one of their management platforms. And so we couldn't tell if it was going to be internally or cloud hosted. We're trying to figure it out. Thought we found the system. We managed to, after we'd already compromised domain administrator, like completely, we pivoted over into this system. And as I start looking through it, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? This doesn't look like a server. It wasn't. It turns out this was the developer for that system, and he had a private instance with SQL servers running on it. So it looked like the server at first glance. So I'm like, oh crap, we're really stuck now. I start trying to look around. I'm trying to figure out where we can get into this. And then I finally got the idea. It's like, hold on, this is web accessible. And this guy's using this computer like it's his desktop. I'm going to dump his Chrome history. And so I dump out his Chrome history, and then right in there, bam, we found the URL directly to the server. So then once we found the server, we were able to look at it. I think we got remote code execution on it using some other methods that we had. And then we actually found, like, we were able to get like an administrator password to it. We had, and like this is all happening at like 5 o'clock on Wednesday, right? Day before Thanksgiving. So it's like we just barely like Indiana Jones snatching his hat from under the stone door, pulled it off at the last minute. And so, which was really cool because the last team hadn't made it that far. So I was like, yeah, awesome. So, that's the thing over here. Hellhound, I'm doing pretty good today. Yesterday I was pretty saucy and mighty pissed off over some events that happened trying to go to an ATV race in Oklahoma. And so that's why I canceled the stream last night. I was exhausted and I was just in a pissy mood, honestly, for various reasons. Other than that, I'm doing great today. Hey, Ratchet, what's up, dude? Let's see. Hey, Jug Pearl, what's up? Let's see. What's the best way to start pen testing? There's too many resources. I don't know if I'm on the correct path. Okay, so actually I was just talking to a fella about this. If you are not familiar with much security stuff, one of the best areas I have seen so far to start with is the Try Hack Me groups, because they have a lot of very good learning paths to get you started. I don't think you're going to be going into penetration testing by having just completed what's in Try Hack Me. That is a starting point for you. But one thing it's going to do is it's going to lay a decent foundation for you and you start building on it. So one thing I recommend doing is what we did back in the Red Team Ops course, right? As I was going through the course material and working in the lab, I know you couldn't see it because I kept the course material off to the side. So I'm not just giving Rasta Mouse's course away for free. But in the lab, I was constantly just fiddling around to find out. We're just messing with stuff. Like, okay, cool, that worked. Well, what if, I didn't have that? Or what if this thing was set differently on the system? Okay, cool, now we got to find a different way to do that. Okay, let's say this tool for some reason doesn't work. By the way, I ran into that so much during this current penetration test that 90% of the test was really just fighting my tooling. Test tools out, know where they fail, and how to have alternatives. And we just went through and we found alternatives to do that. So getting used to that idea of like, okay, cool, can I make this maybe a little artificially harder? And what would be the way to stop this? Okay, what's the counter? What's the counter? What's the counter? it is almost like a game of chess, right? There's moves and counter moves and counter moves and counter moves within the counter moves. It's a lot of that back and forth. That's how security is. It'll be 8 months ago. Has it been 8 months? Man, when did we? When did I start? I think I started in March-ish. Hey, no problem, Jack. So yeah, and once I get things a little bit more stable, I'm gonna try to start increasing the frequency of the streams. I know just doing Saturday and Sunday right now, I really try really hard to keep to those. I'm gonna try and get them back up a little bit closer. Probably not doing 6 days a week again, like I had been doing, because that was quite demanding. And then life circumstances have changed, as y'all know. Have contingency plans for your contingency plans. Yeah, exactly, Bobby. Hang on one second. Surprisingly, even though it is balls cold in Dallas, I gotta go turn a fan on because I'm hot. I'm in this little box next to my server and my computer. It just gets really hot right here. Hang on one sec. All right, that's much better. Gotta get some airflow. I was trying to get into the GRC realm and fell into security threat hunting. Dude, threat hunting is really cool, but I would say, let's look at something real quick. Hang on. Let me pull up the iPad of knowledge here. Let me clear this out. All right. So if you think about like what's the skill tree for security or like penetration testing? Really, it all starts with just being like an IT person, typically. Doesn't necessarily mean you've got a job. It just means you're working with technology and you're learning how to implement and service it and make it functional, right? And then from there, you branch off into your individual specializations. So let's say we've got like a, I don't know, let's say we got a cloud specialization, right? And then let's say after cloud, we've got, I don't know, let's say DevOps. Let's say you got a DevOps specialization. And then maybe after DevOps, you've got, I don't know, let's say just like regular server admin, right? Your job is just the care and feeding of the servers. And then one of the other ones in this list will be security. And then this one branches off from here. So each of these has just like branching trees, right? This is just like a skill tree in an MMO. And then security, it goes into many different places, right? So once you start working in, you want to start working into security, one of the areas you can go into is like GRC. Or you can go into like a SOC, working on a blue team and checking out different threats and whatnot. And you could also go into offensive security. That is horrendous. Hang on. You go to offensive security. Right here. And the cool thing about these is they may not be mutually exclusive, right? You actually might start down the SOC path and then pivot down into the offensive path, which would be super helpful. Or there's even engineering, right? And I see a lot of people, this is the route I took. I went into engineering and then pivoted over into offensive security. And mostly because offensive security has been a hobby and a passion of mine for a very long time, before I even thought of IT as a career. And then once you get into offensive, technically, kind of the genesis of, like, let's say there's a path where SOC and offensive meet. This is where threat hunting lives. It's kind of like a fusion of being a blue teamer and a red teamer. It really is kind of like the purple team, because your job is to go through and use the analysis what you've got, understanding it offensive tradecraft, and then go find the guys that you know are probably dwelling in your environment. That's where threat hunting kind of lies. So this would be like kind of the skill tree you'd go at. You start with, hey, just let me get some basic IT understanding. I need to understand Windows, networking, how the operating systems function, how to administer them correctly, and then what's some weird ways to administer them, because I like to FAFO, and then start working on the security aspects. How do I harden those systems? Okay, cool. What kind of logs are they generating? Can I maybe start developing some systems here for this. And let's say if I throw a little bit of offensive stuff in here, can I detect what those attacks are? And then it evolves into threat hunting. So each of these is just kind of an evolution of that skill set each time. GRC does fall kind of over into here, but GRC kind of branches off into its own. It's kind of like it's its own thing in here because it's a constantly evolving beast, right? There's lots of iterations that happen because those regulations can change year to year. Any physical red team engagements? I always envision these Mission Impossible James Bond scenarios. Dude, no, they're not even that cool, Bobby. Did one last month. It was more like acting like a lost employee than James Bond. Yeah, Ratchet, that's exactly it. I'll tell you what I like to do. Whenever I first go get into a building I'm not supposed to be in, is I go find the break room and I go get a cup of coffee. Because who in their right mind is going to go break into a place and be walking around with a cup of coffee? And so you have a cup of coffee and a clipboard. Nobody's going to ask you a damn thing. They're going to assume you belong there. Another guy, and that's a variation on a theme I heard from another fella, that what he would do is he'd go, like, if the break room had snacks, he'd go make a bag of popcorn. That goes back again to the hacker mindset. It's like, hey, what can I do to almost like subvert expectations? And I know that that word has like a weird connotation now because of media and it's ruined a bunch of movies and stuff. But that's kind of what it is. Nobody expects somebody to come break into a building and then grab a cup of coffee or grab a bag of popcorn and just be walking around, right? Nobody expects that. I would say there's a branch of personality sets motivations that combines with these technical areas to push you in a direction. Yeah, exactly. It's really just, it is almost kind of like a little bit of like a choose your own adventure. It's just where you want to go specialize in. And there's people that move amongst these groups here. Nobody really likes to move out or into GRC. For the most part, it's you. If you like GRC, you like GRC. You kind of stick around to GRC. But amongst these other technical fields, like I started into engineering and then moved over into offensive, right? And even back here when I was doing IT, really actually where I did was I went into networking. That was where I was starting in IT. And then I kind of bounced up to server admin and then down to security. That was really the path I took. Now, these three were actually almost like the exact same job because of where I was working. I got to touch a lot of different areas. Let's see. Have a heart attack, get 2 stents into the heart, and have an interview the week. Yeah. That was wild, dude. I have to do an incident responder, threat hunting, pen testing, and red teaming. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different areas you can go with it in. It just kind of depends on which area you like doing, right? I'll tell you, one of the good things about offensive security is it's more fun. It is still work. Don't get me wrong. There's paperwork and shit you got to do, and there's rules you do have to abide by so you don't get sent to federal prison. But offensive security tends to be a lot more fun and in some respects less stressful than doing something like maybe engineering or SOC, where you could have on-call rotations or literally failure to recognize an attack could be detrimental to the company, right? Whereas on the offensive side, the worst thing I can do really is go trip an alarm that just they find out we're doing a pen test or a red team engagement. That's it. So lots of fun stuff there. Oh, hey, before I forget, so here I'm going to drop this article over in the chat if you want to check it out. How to break these TOTPs with Hashcat. Got my get out of jail free letter in my wallet, one in my truck, one in my bag, and one on my computer. So Ratchet, actually what I used to do was I would keep 2 get out of jail free cards on me. A fake one with a number that went to a cell phone where my bro was on standby and could go answer it. And then I had the real one. So if I ever needed to, thankfully I didn't really ever need the get out of jail free card. I'd start with the fake one first. That was the plan, and let it go from there. GRC is important, but it feels like a lot of CYA and check the box exercises. Yeah, it pretty much is. A lot of it's just, a lot of people think if you pass your GRC audits that you are highly secure and you're like, you get a really good security posture. That is not the case. That is your starting point. That's your bare minimum, right? Think about it like when you're looking at nutrition labels on food, that's the recommended daily allowance of food. Like, oh, this is 20% of your vitamin C or whatever. That 20% isn't how much you need to get in a day. That is the minimum amount you should be getting in a day. And the optimal amount is actually usually some multiple of that. 2, 3, 4 times that much. So GRC is kind of like your recommended daily allowance of check boxes. It's the bare minimum of what you should be implementing in your environment. All right. I want to look at this real quick, and then we'll actually move on to some other news. Let's see. So real quick, this is what he did here. He comes in, he runs Hashcat with his example here. And what it's going to do is, let me actually read this real quick. So this particular hash mode isn't like your average hash mode in Hashcat. So by default, its definition tells Hashcat to keep guessing candidates until the available key space is exhausted. So as a result, Hashcat recovered stat will remain 0 despite your pop file filling up. This is expected, don't worry. So there's an example of it. It says it exhausted the key space, it can't work anymore. So what you do is once the attack's finished, you should have a pool of candidates in your pop file. Most of them should be unique, but your genuine secret will be duplicated across 2 entries. So we'll need a tiny bit of shellcode to reveal which one that was. So what he does is he does a cut on the pop file. He does a sort unique, and then does a head. Ah, here we go. Oh, so in this example, he had this one. So the reason why he sorted it like this is he wanted to see which one's duplicated. This one duplicated twice, so he had 2 hits on it. So this one, like I said, it's a little bit weirder because you're actually going to have to go do some post-processing of the pop file, which is where Hashcat stores cracked hashes. But still really cool. That's a fun one. Man, I hadn't thought about this technique in a while. And now I really want to go make that pretext and stop talking about the USDA's PIV policy. What time is it? Oh shit! I just noticed. Hey guys, I need to take probably a 5-minute break. I gotta go help. Actually, hold on. Before I say that, I'm gonna go check something real quick. Be right back. I think I'm gonna slum that tonight. And I just realized I didn't mute the microphone, so you might have just heard me talking to my wife. Let's see. You have an original Monopoly card handy too, right? Just in case. Oh, Bob. Yeah. Oh, that'd be funny. Like the guard comes up to you, is like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Universe, what are you doing here?" That'd be funny. All right. Paged Out number 5. I've actually never seen Paged Out. What is this? Ooh, interesting. Not going to read through 68 pages of it, but what is this? I haven't seen this. Let's see. So, Paged Out returned with issue number 3, then blinked twice and found ourselves on track with issue number 5. When working on this issue, we have crossed an important milestone. Let me zoom this in so y'all can see it a little bit better. Our issues have been downloaded over 500,000 times. Makes my processor, my heart beat faster. So what is this? I mean, that's pretty cool, but I've never even heard of page out. What do they cover in here? That's not what I wanted to do. Oh, so we got art here. Let's see. Algorithms, color graphing with group theory, GPT and PyTorch. The balloon key derivation function. Okay. The art of Java class golfing. Interesting. I guess it's just a technical, like a technical sign. Okay. My wife just puts this on my desk. She's like, this was in somebody's pocket. I was like, I know. This was in APT's pocket. He probably picked this up off the ground and just stuck it right in his pocket. I'm always finding Roxy's shit in his clothes. Oh, damn. So what else do they have here? Okay, cool. So they got some stuff on reverse engineering, security, and hacking. Neat. I will drop a link to this over here, just for anybody who wants to take a look at it. I may go read through it later, but definitely not reading through it on stream. Actually, I don't know. Let's see if they had anything interesting here. So what do we got? Circumventing disabled SSH port forwarding with a multiplexer. Digits of Unicode, easy honeypot. Hacker's favorite SSH usernames, a top 320 ranking. Alright, I might be interested in that one. Let's see. Playing with tokens, using a PNG as a way to share files. Vulnerability hunting the right way. Hey, this is something we were just kind of talking about, wasn't it? Is it? Hold on. Okay. Let's go see what he talks about here real fast. So I'm sure many people reading this are already familiar with the security and vulnerability research world. It's often that many of the vulnerabilities found are quite simple. For example, you attack an IoT device and you find out the most simplistic or maybe even simple but new form of cross-site scripting within that device. So going through this myself, I spent a lot of time raging over the simple stuff as I was finding. Given my experience in development and my love of it, it's quite sad to see the commonality of simple flaws. So I tried to look for a new angle to see if there's any way that not only was it more difficult to go through, but also taught me something new. Okay. Okay. Are these all like really short articles? Because then they go into Z attack proxy, or is this still the same article? Okay, so there's like just small stuff in here. All right, so the new angle, let me see what he says. Searching by the root, design flaw. So the new angle involves taking the root of a system and searching there. What do I mean by this? Well, this is a way of saying that many flaws in existing software come from unmaintained software designs. So for example, let's say we are ripping open an IoT device. This device uses a custom network protocol that nobody has seen in the wild yet. First idea of any security researcher would be, if not found or discovered yet, to find it yourself, which means to reverse engineer the protocol. So when you go down that path, you should be looking for the system that the network protocol is built on, such as the network layer the protocol is built on, if the protocol is part of the existing standard, or what the protocol is doing. So all questions alike can be used to break down the design of the protocol more, and thus bring you to the root of where every flaw may sit. Okay. All right, I'm done reading that part. I mean, it looks like there are interesting stuff in there. I'm not familiar with it. All right, what else do we got in here? Let's see. FYI, a warrant isn't needed. Secret Service says you agree to be tracked with location data. Your weekly reminder that the US still does not have a comprehensive data privacy law. At least in the EU, they have to deploy spyware instead of just harvesting your ad data. Yeah, pretty much. Who wrote that? 404 Media? Yeah, I think they paywall their stuff. Yeah, they do. Oh no, they didn't paywall this one. They paywalled other ones in the past. Let's see. So officials inside the Secret Service clashed over whether they needed a warrant to use location data harvested from ordinary apps installed on smartphones, with some arguing that citizens have agreed to be tracked with such data by accepting apps' terms of service, despite those apps often not saying their data may end up with authorities, according to hundreds of pages of internal Secret Service emails obtained by 404 Media. So the emails provided deeper insight into the agency's use of Locate X, a powerful surveillance capability that allows law enforcement officers to follow a phone and person's precise movements over time at the click of a mouse. So in 2023, a government oversight body found that the Secret Service, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement all used access to such location data illegally. Secret Service told 404 Media in an email last week it is no longer using the tool. That's quite disconcerting because that means they have a replacement. Once they have that ability, they're not just going to let it go. Let's see. So if the Secret Service is using Locate X, that is most concerning to us, said one of the emails. 404 Media obtained 404 Media obtained them and other documents through a Freedom of Information Act. So Locate X is made by a company called Babel Street. So in October, Krebs on Security published an article based on the videos that showed that Locate X tool in action. In one example, it was possible to follow the visitors to a specific abortion clinic across state lines and to their likely place of residence. I think this was talked about at a DEF CON talk too. I remember hearing about one that was kind of like that. So tools similar to Locate X often use data that has been collected from ordinary smartphone apps. Apps on both iOS and Android devices collect location data and then sell or transfer that to a member in the data broker community. Pretty much. Fucking data brokers. So in early March 2020, Tech Publication Protocol first revealed the existence of Locate X. It was reported that CBP, ICE, and the Secret Service were all using Locate X in some capacity. The article mentioned that Locate X's terms specify that the tool will only be used for internal research purposes and cannot be used as evidence in a criminal case, or mention the technology at all is an illegal proceeding. So this is something that's called a parallel investigation. So if you're not familiar with this, you have to, a lot of times what police will do is they know what is legal and not legal evidence. So what they'll do is they will use illegal evidence, and don't even argue with me about this, they do it all the time. This is just one more example of it. They use illegal evidence to then look for clues on how they can build a parallel investigation with legal evidence based on, oh yeah, we had a hunch and we just checked this out and voila, look, hey, this led to this and this led to this. And so on and so forth. It happens all the time. It's a very common practice. It's one of those dirty secrets that we wish wasn't so. Hey Ken, what's up, dude? What's insane is the intricate network of these data brokers that just harvest your data and resell it, which becomes rinse and repeat. There's tons of these orgs that somehow operate legally. Yeah, right. Let's see. But this important limitation was news to some people, including the email obtained by 404 Media. I wasn't aware of this, one official wrote after reading the protocol article. This could conflict with discovery obligations in criminal proceedings. Good. The Fourth Amendment exists for a reason. It is not too great. A lot of people don't realize this. They keep getting the purpose of the laws in the Constitution backwards. The laws in the Constitution don't grant you rights. The laws in the Constitutions limit what the government can do against your rights. There's a difference between them. The protocol report quoted a former Babel Street employee who said that the technology was used to crack down on credit card skimming. So a document included in the email says that the Secret Service can utilize Babel Street's Locate X to identify smartphones that were at multiple confirmed skimmed locations. Well, there's a lot of other tools that do that. It's not just Locate X. I know there's other ones. I don't know them offhand, but there's a bunch. The internal emails also indicated which specific divisions inside Secret Service may have turned to the technology. So it's been confirmed that our Protective Intelligence Division uses this product in its criminal investigations. One March email written by a Secret Service privacy officer read, as the name implies, the division's mission includes protecting people and locations. So another email says the division was not using LocateX, but that the Office of Investigation Strategy maybe. We're not using it, maybe they're using it. Yeah, sure. Another said that the Office of Investigation Strategy uses it as an investigative tool. One email shows that an official in the Secret Service wanted to use the tool to look for a phone in LaGuardia and Fort Lauderdale airports. A third said that Babel Street Locator was used as part of an Operation Crypto Craig, a foreign fraud investigation. Crypto Craig. That's funny. So, in one March 2020 email, an official wrote that part of the Department of Homeland Security was working on guidance around LocateX. That guidance said, essentially, that this tool is not strictly unlawful, but there are some limitations we should follow to improve our chances that it would be accepted by judicial review. So we previously raised concerns with the Office of General Counsel regarding the department's use of ADID tracking as it relates to the Supreme Court case Carpenter v. U.S. I'm not familiar with that case. With ADID referring to the advertiser identifier LocateX uses. Yeah, your ad ID. That's what it is. So this ruling decided that a mobile phone's cell site location data is protected under the Fourth Amendment and requires a search warrant to be accessed. In other words, this person was raising concerns that LocateX's data could fall under that as well. Let's see, let me read this one more time. That ruling decided that a mobile phone's cell site location data is protected under the Fourth Amendment. So legally, they're going to split hairs on this. Your cell site location data is what cell tower you're connected to from your physical device. And ad ID is going to be collecting your geographical data, not your cell site data, and it's collecting it in different means. So what they were saying here was they couldn't use the cell phone providers. This is really dumb, because what they're saying is, they're saying you can't use the cell phone providers to provide tracking data for arbitrary users or those under criminal investigation without a warrant. But they're saying, but at the same time, if they gave us permission by installing Words with Friends or whatever stupid app people want to install that has location tracking, oh, well, then we can totally get it. It's dumb. Babel Street itself took another stance, according to the emails. I talked to Babel Street execs tonight, and their legal privacy privacy believes that Carpenter is not applicable. One Secret Service email from 2018 read, sounds like a BS double standard. Yeah, Bobby, it is. It is, and that's one of the downsides of the law, is that a lot of the words that sound like they should be, and keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer. I just watch a lot of law TV for fun. And one of the things that they're always harping on is that the words used in legal documents are not English. They're English in name only. They're legalese. Those words have common English definitions, and they have technical legal definitions that get used. So a lot of times you might see them, well, it said this. It's like, yeah, but the law defines this as a potato instead of a yam or whatever. It just depends on how that definition plays out. So one reason was that Babel Street's data is opt-in only. Users have to affirmatively agree to its collection and dissemination. It's not passively collected without user knowledge. A warrant isn't needed because the user gives consent. It happens when you agree to the terms of service. Now, this is why Babel is saying you can't use this for criminal investigations. Because if you didn't know this, no company wants to have a battle over the terms of service. Because contracts that are heavily written and favor one side tend to give all the benefit to the opposite side. So in this case, anybody who's writing a terms of service is the single sole party writing it. And so if that terms of service is unreasonable, any chance it goes to in court, it needs to favor the other side. There's kind of a legal balance that happens there. I could be completely wrong. Anybody with a law degree, please feel free to correct me. This was my understanding of it. But people agreeing to weird shit in a terms of service is something that no company wants to fight. They want to keep that as nebulous as possible so they can get as much wiggle room as possible. Eventually, it's going to come to a head, but they're doing stuff like this saying, hey, you can't use this for criminal investigations because of this reason. Because the only thing they've got is the agreement of the terms of service. Nobody wants to go enforce terms of service. Unless it's in a video game, then they want to over-enforce it. Screw you, Call of Duty. So, of course, it's very unlikely that many people understand what they granted the location data permissions for ordinary apps. I don't grant location data for many apps at all. Only ones that actually need it. And then they're probably still slurping up my data, so what the hell? So, of course, it's very unlikely that many people understand when they grant location data permissions to an ordinary app that their movements are going to be fed into a warrantless tracking system. So I previously found that apps in similar data supply chains were not explicit with the context in which they were collecting user location data. In some cases, even app developers were not aware that they ultimately sent their users location data. You did hear correctly. That's exactly what they're doing. So this is a little bit older data, and they were using a tool called LocateX. But now they say they're not using it anymore. Well, anytime the government says they've stopped using something, that just means they found a replacement. Once they get that taste of that ability, they don't want to let it go. They're going to find an alternative. So another reason Babel Street sees its data is not needing a warrant is because, according to the emails, it is entirely anonymous because it's hashed by Babel Street. It does not get you to end user. Interesting. It doesn't get you to the end user, but let's do a little thought experiment here. It doesn't get you to the end user, huh? All right. You only have an ad ID, right? So what do we have? We're going to have an ad ID, and then we're going to have locations. And we're probably going to have timestamps to those locations, right? And we want to find out who has been, I don't know, who's been going to some political protest, right? So let's say we've got Main Street here. And then right in here in Town Square, there's been a big political protest, or as I like to call it, a big pee-pee. So let's say we got some streets coming here. Everything goes towards the town square, right? Then we got a couple other streets happening. Boom. Got one more street coming out of town. And then maybe these two are connected. And then this is just a street out of town. Let's say we got maybe a Starbucks up here. Right? So we got a Starbucks. Maybe we got ourselves a bank right here. And let's say we got an ATM. Let's say there's just an ATM over here just kind of chilling out. All right, cool. So now what do we got? We got some people. We got, let's say, Mr. Red. We got Mr. Green. And we got Mrs. Yellow. And let's say we've got unknown suspect Blue. And what do we see? We see something like... Get the worst timing ever, woman. Hang on, guys. We'll finish this analogy in just a second. I need to go help my wife with something. I'll be right back. I'm going to run a 3-minute ad break, by the way. It's going to take me a little bit longer than 3 minutes. That way we just have to deal with ads for like another hour. So go grab a stretch and a drink, and we'll hit this again. We'll continue the example of why anonymous tracking data is bullshit. right, I'm back. I am back. All right. That's why I refuse to use anything with a SIM card, Wi-Fi only. Dude, I want all the convenient technologies, but as someone who understands the security implications of those, and also understands that the government is ultimately run by people who want to do shitty things, because that's just, for some reason, the type of people that government jobs attract. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of good people in there. I used to work in government, but holy shit, does it reward inefficiency. Okay, so let's say, for example, they're looking at this, and let's say there's something else here. Let's say we've got, let's say there's a hotel right here. Like there's a hotel sitting up here. And so let's say we've got location data that shows Mr. Red. Let's start with him. Let's start with Mr. Red. Let's say Mr. Red was at the hotel at, let's say he's not a night owl. Let's say he was there from 9 p.m. to, I don't know, 9 a.m. Right? He just hung out at the hotel. And then next thing we know is that Mr. Red hit up the ATM at, let's say, 9:05. Right? And then we know that Mr. Red was at the Big Pee-Pee, the political protest, whatever it is. Right? And let's say he was there at 9:10 a.m. And then, let's say, he decided to pop over to Starbucks around 12. Get some lunch. Did a lunchy munchy. And then he returns back to the Big Pee-Pee around 12:30. And then once he leaves there, he went back to the hotel. Once the protest was over for the day, let's say they finish up around 6 o'clock. Around 6 p.m., he goes back to the hotel. So now you've got instantly a couple of areas where you can go identify this person. One, he was at the hotel from here. So you know he's a guest in the hotel. That instantly limits the list of people that you can use to de-anonymize this. And then you know that he went over to, that's supposed to be Starbucks. It's a horrible beat. Goes over to Starbucks at 12. Okay, cool. So now we know he has been to the hotel. He's been to the ATM. He's been to Starbucks. Let's not forget the ATMs all have cameras. So who was using the ATM at 9:05? Okay, cool. So now we've instantly de-anonymized this one person just for this example right here. And the same thing could be happening. Let's say, Mr. Yellow here goes over to the bank. Well, every bank has security cameras that could be happened here. In fact, really, that's the biggest case you need, is that with the prevalence of security cameras and long-term data storage requirements for a lot of those systems, instantly this is null and void because it de-anonymizes everybody, because you can instantly go through and find, okay, what location were they at that has the camera at what timestamp? Bam, there's the person. Yeah, Big Doggy, actually, you are really correct. You don't even need the damn camera for the ATM. There's just a log of who went there and used their ATM card. Such bullshit. We're not even living in the cool cyberpunk dystopia. We're living in a really boring cyberpunk dystopia. Let's see, what did we leave off? So another reason Babel Street says its data does, as not needing warrant is because according to the email, it's entirely anonymous because it's hashed by Babel Street. It does not get you to the end user. That's not entirely true either. In the demonstration of Locate X Me and other journalists, Default, what's up, man? Welcome. Thanks for coming online. Boobies have been telling us that we're going to do this for the last 20 years. Oh, here comes a raid? All right. My body is prepared. Oh, it's not that kind of raid? Cool, that's even better. In a weird mood today. Justin, I think you beat the raid. Is Tyler done already? No way. I just saw him get online like an hour ago, right? Did he do the first day of the Advent of Cyber in 1 hour? I gotta funny story for him when he pops in here. Oh, just a small stream. Well, yeah, I mean, he's trying to stream like the entire Advent of Cyber. So yeah, I don't blame him. Just do lots of small streams on that. I've never done the Advent of Cyber. I thought about doing it this year, but I was like, okay, with Tyler's doing it, a bunch of other folks are going to be doing it. I don't really want to go hop into it, and I'm probably not going to go do it on my free time. I've got other research topics I want to work on. He's being slow with the URL drop. Where did I start? When getting into this, when I saw Hackers in 1992. When was that movie? I wish I was joking. 1995. Yeah, I had a massive crush on Angelina Jolie and begged my parents for a laptop. And then I knew nothing of what to do with that laptop. And the poor thing just sat neglected and never used. And then, but over time, I just kept getting into computers and working on them and stuff. And now, like, my oldest son, codename Agent Zero, he's got a new laptop. His old one broke. And so he's really been asking to go install the operating system so he can use it. So I'm going to show him how to go through all the steps of it. Because his last one, he was a little too young for it. Now he's kind of old enough to get the steps on it. But yeah, actually, that was the first time like that opened my idea to that world. And then I'd go to like Barnes and Noble and go read 2600. And it's just been a very slow progression. It didn't really kick into high gear. I had learned a lot of weird little tricks and always been interested in security and had been good with computers. But until around 2009, I didn't actually start taking it seriously and try and start building it into a career. And I actually started in Cisco networking, then kind of had like a server admin, networking, teaching, like virtualization manager role. There's Tyler. What's up, man? Hey, wait, how come my raid alert didn't go off? What the French toast? My Twitch alerts aren't muted, are they? No. It's a piece of crap. I wonder why the raid alert didn't go. Or wait, did the raid alert go off and I just didn't hear it? Hey, what's up, Tyler? Dude, Tyler, I got a funny story for you. So there's another guy. If you like space and astronomy stuff, there's a fellow that streams a couple days a week called Nerd Duino. And hey, Runamacher, thanks for coming online, man. Nerd Duino was online, and he's usually up a little bit later, right? So we had finished up the stream. I was going to go raid him. And as soon as the raid hits, we go in there, and he's like, oh, dude, I was just about to raid you. And we thought it canceled. Well, no, then about 10 seconds later, Nerduino raided over, and we're just stuck in this void of my chat. Oh, you did, Shy Hat? Okay, good. Oh, man, I forgot to deploy the cookie monster. Hang on. There we go. Oh, damn it, it did it. No, it did it. There you go. The cookie monster will slow down the attackers. Yeah, this is 404 Media. So we were just going over the news. Typically, I'd do life circumstances changed, and oh my god, everybody's coming online. Welcome in, everyone. Those dial-up sounds give me all the nostalgia feels. Yeah, typically I'll do a Saturday night stream where we do like a news recap for the week. And then Sunday night, we do just hacking around and finding out, as I like to call it, or fiddling around, or effing around. But I didn't stream last night. I was exhausted from traveling for a cross-country ATV race that I do with my son. It was an absolute shit show. But anyway, so I didn't stream last night. So we're just covering the news tonight right here. This one's about warrantless location tracking used by the Secret Service. So fun stuff here. Where would you tell someone new to start that I'm in my 30s? Hey, dude, Dupal, I was in my 30s too, man. Whenever it came to, I was 30 when I graduated from TCU. That's where I got my bachelor's degree, and then I started like my first kind of like real IT job doing being blue teamer, security analysis. Um, the place I actually liked starting was with Cisco networking because it was a really great foundation. That take that with a grain of salt because not all Cisco networking courses are the same. I happen to luck into a very good one. But honestly, recently I've been recommending going to TryHackMe and looking at their learning courses, so you can get a good foundation and you know where to start building up from there. And the way I always tell this, I actually was just mentoring a fella on this. I told him when you're approaching this, don't approach it at the surface level of just memorization. Take it to where, hey, I don't understand why this is. Let me see what other moving parts there are so I can get a better conceptualization of it. And start building up that little bit of curiosity. Maybe go down a couple rabbit holes just for fun and go start getting used to that because the rabbit holes are prevalent. And one of the skills that you actually have to develop in the security world, doesn't matter which portion of the security world, is knowing how far to go down the rabbit hole and when to stop because the rabbit hole goes on forever, it feels like. It's hilarious you called out 1995 hackers as that's also what captured me. Only difference is I didn't have access to the bookstore, so I was on IRC and Freenode. I loved Freenode back in the day. Using Merc, smacking people with large trouts. At the Cisco program, it was a love-hate relationship, but definitely find it useful all the time. Yeah, Justin, whenever I can't subnet like instantly anymore, I feel kind of bad, and I picture my Cisco instructor. His name was Neil. It is Neil, as I assume, but anyway, I picture him looking over my shoulder, just like disappointed in me when I can't subnet instantly. So, oh god, that cracks me up thinking about that. Yeah, I went hard on that Cisco networking course. Same thing I did with Red Team Ops. But if you're already working in security and you want to move kind of deeper into offensive security, the OSCP is still good. I know y'all probably all heard Tyler's love-hate relationship with it. It's still recommended and highly recognized. One that I took, though, because I took the OSCP when it was the old version back in the day. But go check out, I think it's #RTO. There we go. Go check out the 0-point security trainings and the Red Team Ops course in there. He also has a lot of introductory courses, like Introduction to Kerberos, Introduction to C#. Report writing is a big one, because if you're going to be doing offensive or defensive operations, you want to be able to write a good technical report. So, thanks for stopping in, man. Appreciate it. I have to relearn subnetting from scratch every time. Orcs, it feels like that sometimes, man. I used to do it on my fingers, right? It was like, I would tuck your thumbs in, and it's like, there's my 8 digits, right? And so I'd go figure out my subnet mask real fast. It was 128, 192, 224, 240, 248, 252, 254, 255. And that's how I would do my subnetting real fast. I would do it on my fingers in binary. Hey, have a good night, Justin. Thanks for stopping in. Y'all have a great week coming up. The thing I think the standalone courses are kind of updates to RTO content. They kind of are, but they're really more for precursors to the RTO content because like if you don't understand Kerberos real well, the RTO is going to be difficult. So that introduction to Kerberos is something to try and help. As I was talking to Rust about it, it's something to kind of help bridge the gap moving into the RTO course. Hey, Deb, what's up? Deb Suthar. Good evening. Good morning. Well, it's evening for me, but good morning to you. All right, let's continue on with this. So, I think they were basically just talking about, like, yeah. They're saying that the gist of this was, for everybody who just came in, is that they were using location data from ad IDs and that it should be anonymous, but we just showed that in our diagram. Oh, shit, I deleted it. That it's not anonymous because as soon as you track somebody down to any system that has a log to it, you can instantly identify them. Namely, ATMs, a Starbucks, a bank, anywhere that's got cameras and logs transactions. So, how does the 0-point security RTO compare to the OSCP? The way actually I heard it put to me, because I was kind of tutoring a couple of guys that they had completed the OSCP and the OSCE, which is the second one, the certified expert, right? Um, so that's the next level after the OSCP. They essentially told me that the RTO was the OSCE, so after the OSCP, but with Cobalt Strike. And that was the main reason actually I took the RTO is I had no real good way to get access to Cobalt Strike. And I knew that the place I really wanted to go work used two C2s regularly, and one of them was Cobalt Strike, and that's what a lot of them use. So I wanted to become very familiar with Cobalt Strike, and I went hard on Cobalt Strike. I beat that thing up and down. I used Babel Street for some contract work several years ago. Extremely powerful tool. Yeah, no kidding. So they're saying, hey, Orcs, maybe you know this. They're saying that they're not using Locate X anymore. So what if they replaced it with? Because I'm convinced that they only stopped using it when they found a replacement. If you can tell me. If not, don't breach any confidentiality. Oh, ran out of my Jocko drone. It's the green Jocko, but you can't tell because of the green screen. Hold on. I can't see it up there. Not sponsored by Jocko yet. Working on it. Once I get a video of me completing a Murph, I'm going to send it to Jocko and ask him for a sponsorship. Yeah, Shy Hat. So the entire course for the 0 point security red team ops, the entire thing is based around Cobalt Strike. So that's the only C2 that you're using in there. Hot take: Cisco iOS is a meme. Yes, the entire OS family. I may or may not be triggered due to bugs I encountered in the attack. Yeah, yeah. Cisco iOS can have some really weird bugs into it. No, Covenant wasn't even used in. I've only briefly used Covenant. It was all right. The other one that I really like that's open source is Mythic C2. And eventually, I think I might try to put together like a Mythic masterclass, and it would be something that you can probably like run locally. Like you can load it up in a local Ludus server and be able to do it. But I haven't taken the time to really map that out yet. I'm still trying to learn a lot of the parts for Mythic myself. There's a lot to it. It's a very cool tool. I actually like it better than Cobalt Strike in some ways. Syntax Scholar, what's up, man? Happy Sunday. Right, let's deuce out of this article because we already know that the rest of it's going to be, yeah, we're not using it. Been using Mythic on Hack the Box to get experience with it. Oh, dude, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I really like Mythic. It is really cool. By the way, for anybody who's curious about it, I will drop a link to it. Meow. Here we go. This is Mythic C2. Ah, screwed it up. There it is. There's the correct link. And it's really cool. Make sure you go through, when you're getting ready to set it up, though, make sure and read the Mythic documentation because it works very differently. Especially if you're already familiar with Cobalt Strike. Everything is run through a web UI, so there's different steps on how to accomplish different tasks in there. It's far easier to evade Defender with it. Haven't gotten Elastic, though. Yeah. So one of the cool things about Mythic is not a C2 platform. It's a framework. I don't know why I just scrolled up. But it's really more of a framework, and that it's designed so that you could go through and you could build your own agents and your own C2 channels to be able to pass stuff through there. If you want to learn more about it, I got a video up on YouTube with it's an interview with It's a Feature. And we were just talking about it. I think it's about an hour, maybe hour and a half long. And it's literally the only video on there. So it's really easy to find. But give it a listen. He explains a lot of the stuff to it. I talked to him about some of the misconceptions I had, and he helped me understand it much better and clear it up. Yeah, Apollo is the big one for Mythic. It's the most readily updated one. It's the one that I beat up the most and find all my bugs in. That's pretty much all I am when it comes to Mythic is like I'm not a part of that project. I'm just the unofficial QA, and I just find bugs and I send them to Cody. It's a feature. Let's see. All right, so what was our next story here? Fortune 1000 at risk. How we discover 30,000 exposed APIs and 100,000 API issues in the world's largest organizations. And then what's our little note here from our fellows at Bad Sectors? Exposed APIs aren't necessarily bad, but over 1,800 critical vulnerabilities, including criticals, exposed evidences, and secrets being leaked is bad. Yeah. Probably not going to run through this, but that sounds about on par. There's a lot of stuff to find out there. Everybody thinks everything's been picked over. No, there's a lot of stuff to go find out there that just isn't being looked at. Right. All right. So that was it for news. It was a very light news week. Just these 4 articles. Let's see. Techniques and write-ups. Local privilege escalation in need restart. Let's see. So from technical analysis to song lyrics, it's the must-read post of the week. I hope Qualys leadership continue to allow this kind of work and allow it to be published as a text file. Okay, let's go take a look at this. Qualys Security Advisory. Let's see. What do they got here? So Need Restart is a Perl tool that's installed by default on an Ubuntu server since 21.04. So what is it? It's a tool that probes your system to see if either the system itself or some of its services should be restarted. Last part is the one that's interesting in the document. Notably, a service is considered as needing to be restarted if one of its processes is using a shared library whose initial file isn't on the system anymore. So for instance, if it has been overwritten by a new version as part of a package update. So we ship this tool in our server images, and it's configured by default to run at the end of the app transactions. So when doing an app install or remove, or during unattended upgrades. Okay. Speaking of exposed APIs, I just finished a tool that can expose the entire viewer list of any streamer, which is supposed to be limited to the streamer and mods. I don't know how they think they're going to restrict that, Orcs, because Twitch stream, if you didn't know this, Twitch's whole chat system is just IRC on the back end. So a lot of times, like when you get bots coming in like Fish, like, hey, we'll sell you some viewers. All those are just IRC bots going on in the background. Let's see. So what did they find? So we discovered 3 fundamental vulnerabilities in Needs Restart, 3 local privilege escalations from an unprivileged user to full root, which are exploitable without user interaction on an Ubuntu server through unattended upgrades. All right, so the first one is local attacker can execute arbitrary code as root by tricking the need restart into running the Python interpreter with an attacker-controlled Python path environment variable. Cool. Let's see. An additional CVE has been assigned to need restart because local attackers can also execute arbitrary code as root by tricking need restart into running the Ruby interpreter with an attacker-controlled rubylib environment variable. Ha! Nice. Let's see. What's the next one here? Local attackers can execute arbitrary code as root by winning a race condition and tricking need restart into running their own fake Python interpreter. Ha! Nice. Local attackers can execute arbitrary shell commands as root by tricking need restart into opening a file in the form of commands pipe. Technically, this vulnerability is in Perl's scan depths module, but it's unclear whether this module was ever meant to operate on attacker-controlled files or not. Interesting. Oh, that's funny. We'll not publish our exploits for now, however. Please note that these vulnerabilities are trivially exploitable, and other researchers might publish works exploiting exploits shortly after this coordinated release. Okay. And now the question, do I kill them, become their friend, do I eat them? Pearl Jam. Oh, damn. So while idly watching an apt-get upgrade of one of our Ubuntu servers, we noticed a message that we had not noticed before, scanning processes. So immediately wondered, what is printing this message? Is it scanning userland processes as root, even processes that do not belong to root? We quickly found out that this message is printed by Need Restart, a tool that scans the userland for processes that need to be restarted after a package install. So naturally, need restart scans all userland processes as root, including unprivileged user processes. So to determine whether a Python process needs to be restarted, need restarts extracts the Python path environment variable from its processes. By the way, yeah, if you didn't know that in Linux, this is one of the best things I like to look at whenever I land on a Linux box. Is you go to /proc/ whatever the process ID is that you're of something you're interested in, hint hint cubes control hint hint, and look at the environment variables. This environ file here has a list of all the environment variables for that process, and sometimes they can be very juicy and have lots of cool information to it. Let's see. All right, so what do you say? So it extracts the Python, sets the environment variable as if it exists, and executes Python. Nice. I'm not going to go through all the details of these, but that's kind of funny that that's how they found this. Hilarious. Way to go, Qualis. That's good. I haven't seen a lot of good stuff out of Qualis in a long time, so that was nice. That was a nice, pleasant surprise. Yeah, but you just have to intercept those IRC join/part messages in real time. Which, I mean, you could do. I mean, if you're just running an IRC bot, you just parse them out through there. I'm sure there's probably an easier way to do that, Orcs. I don't know if they consider that a security boundary of knowing who else in the chat. But that's interesting. Let's see. So what's the next one? Enhancing cyber resiliency. Insights from CISA's Red Team assessment of U.S. critical infrastructure organizations. I don't know if I really want to read that. Let's go take a look at it real fast. Let's see. Let's skip the executives. No, we'll read the executive summary. Let's see. CISA conducted a red team assessment at the request of the critical infrastructure organization. During the red team assessment, the team simulated real-world malicious cyber operations to assess an organization's security's detection and response capabilities. In coordination with the assessed organization, CISA is releasing this security advisory to detail the red team's activities, including their tactics, techniques, and procedures, and associated network defense activity. Additionally, the advisory contains lessons learned and key findings for the assessment. Orcs, that's hilarious. And so, I'm not sure. I've never looked into that. I don't know if that's supposed to be like kind of like guarded information or not. That's kind of funny though. Let's see. Let's look at the lessons learned. So the assessed organization had insufficient technical controls to prevent and detect malicious activity. So they probably, let's say the organization relied too heavily on host-based EDR and did not implement sufficient network layer protections. That's a lot of companies. Let's see. The organization's staff required continuous training, support, and resources to implement secure software configurations and detect malicious activity. Staff need to continuously enhance their technical competency. This was one that has been a constant throughout my entire career. This is the one thing a lot of companies, just about every single one except for my current one, have struggled with, is how do you keep your people up to date? And it's a big one. And a lot of managers will come through and they'll say, hey, well, if we train them, they're just going to go get a better job somewhere else. It's like, well, hey, how about this? How about you don't train them and then you have shitty employees? Or if you train them and you show that you really care about them, then they're going to want to stay. Let's see. The organization's leadership minimized the business risk of known attack vectors for the organization. So leadership deprioritized the treatment of a vulnerability their own cybersecurity team identified, and in their risk-based decision-making, miscalculated the potential impact and likelihood of its exploitation. This is one of those things where, again, GRC can get you into trouble if they don't understand the full layout of the environment. So GRC should not have the final say in a lot of things. They need to gain a lot of input from the technical side to understand this part right here. Miscalculated the potential impact and likelihood of its exploitation. So they went through, they did some kind of risk-based decision-making, but they missed a lot of the input that they should have been gathering for that. All right, I don't know if I want to read through all this, but I thought those key takeaways were really good. Let's see, pots and pans, aka an SSL VPN. Another Palo Alto exploit. Damn, man, they're getting beat up hard. These were bugs discussed over the last 2 weeks, and boy, are they bad. The first allows you to disable auth by sending a header asking auth to be disabled. Good lord. The second is a basic command injection. All right, I want to know what this is because that's hilarious. You just send a header request and then boom, instant, like, just disable authentication. Let's see. So there are new vulnerabilities that are being exploited in Palo Alto firewalls and SSL VPN offerings. So here's a quick teaser of what we achieved to whet your appetite. So they run something called Watchtower Palo Alto PanOS CVE something. They give it a target and a command ID. Okay, so this is their code execution one here. So every attacker's favorite vulnerability class, allowing for simple and easy exploitation. Yep. Let's see. So over the last few weeks, we've been closely monitoring a new vulnerability teased at various different phases. It started off as an informational disclosure, a whiff of a rumor of a critical vulnerability. The only public detail was that it was reachable from the device's management interface. So kudos to Palo for warning customers of a potential vulnerability before confirming it and releasing patches as soon as possible. After a while, the rumor turned into incremental advisory, arriving complete with indicators of compromise. And then the bomb dropped on Monday when the official advisories were announced. So this pair of vulnerabilities, described as authentication bypass in the management web interface and a privilege escalation, respectfully, strongly suggesting that they are used as a chain to gain super user access. Let's see. So with the patches released, it's time to go diffing for gold. We won't go into how to jailbreak the appliance. This has been covered in detail by various sources, so we're just going to assume that a motivated reader has already performed this step. That's the way of saying. I used to read this shit all the time in my math textbooks, and this is left as an exercise to the reader. And that was just the author saying, we're too damn lazy to write it up again. Go read it somewhere. They're trying to catch up with Fortinet's phone count. It sure sounds like it, Ford, man. They're really trying. Let's see. So we start our journey by learning the structure and flow of data within the appliance's management interface. Let's see. Hold on. I want to know, specifically, where they got to the header here. Okay, so we present you an example of PanOS's management interface auth boundary. The check that compares HTTP auth headers with the ASCII value auth. No way. Hold on. All right, so if the HTTP X pan auth check does not equal auth, and we have a couple other things, then false. Or if this equals false. Is there an else statement in here? I love the comment here. These are horrible hacks. The whole code should be removed and only made available to a few pages. That's hilarious. Oh, damn. So literally, they're checking to see if this header equals auth. So initially, on seeing this code, we took the world for what it thought it was. Perhaps we should specify xauth pan auth in our request to disable authentication entirely. But as ever, life is not that simple. Our request still resulted in a login page. So after some more digging, we found that header is set by default to on via the proxy config file. Oh, okay. So this configuration file is included in the primary nginx file, but there's a mistake. Is there a mistake? Let's see. Let's see. What was the header called? It was xpan auth check. Let's see. Okay, so it's reading this from a variable in here. So this configuration file is included near. All right, so throughout the nginx configuration, the value of the pan check is toggleable based on the routes being called. For example, the unauthed dir, which as you'd expect requires no auth, is handled like this. Just sets pan check to off. Oh, okay. See if they give a good example of this. Okay, so looking at the primary Nginx route configured revealed quite a limit yet impactful change. So they add header allow for get head post puts, deletes, and options, and this returns a 504. And then they did a proxy set of a bunch of these here. So this tells us two vital things. Firstly, we can set a bunch of request headers that are now we can see that a bunch of request headers that are now being set before any definitions of routes or process taking place where they weren't. Okay, so what they're doing is, I get it now. They were looking at the diff. This was the stuff that was added to the Nginx config. So prior to this add-in, all these headers were attacker controlled. Gotcha. Including that xpan auth one. Ha! Too damn funny. Like I said, anytime you think something's picked over, this was in a major firewall outfit, right? Oh god, that's funny. We can also see that the conf proxy default conf, where the default headers are also set, including the xpan, has been added to the handler for the .js map URIs, where before this was set later. What? Okay. Interesting that they're shipping the map files with it. This assumes you're publishing your management interface, so it's WAN accessible. Who does this? So many people. I'm not going to go pull it up on Shodan, but so many people. Sometimes they just don't realize they've done it, Bobby, right? Sometimes it's done out of ignorance, and sometimes it's done out of carelessness. So leveraging our knowledge of Nginx proxy pass abuse cases, we pondered what the state of the enterprise-grade security appliance that everyone trusts to secure their communications and internal networks, and blasted variations to see if it would allow us through. So here's some examples they tried. Okay, cool. So none of those worked. Let's see. But the UI NV setup PHP script expects that auth header to be off. Something that was blocked by Nginx previously. Maybe we can supply it. Okay. Slightly more enlightened, we tried again. They sent the... So they're trying to hit this ZTP gate PHP as a JS map. Interesting. Okay, looks like it worked. We simply supply an auth value to the header, and the server hopefully turns off authentication. At this point, why is anyone surprised? God, that's funny. Oh. All right, I'm not going to read through the privilege escalation because I'm sure it's very fascinating. I'll drop the link to this one also over in chat if anybody wants to read it. But, God, that's funny. This is another common way. So we were talking about like doing bug hunting earlier. Is if you want to get an idea of some of these exploits that might have existed in the past, is you get let's say like an older version, you get the current version, and you do a diff across them. So you see what's changed, right? Especially like a lot of people who are trying to develop exploits for known published CVEs or security advisories. They do that. They do a lot of binary diffing of those. Too funny. What else we got? Good job, Palo. That's fantastic. That just is horrible. Who would even put that header in? Oh, you know what? We're not done with Palo yet. Extracting plain text credentials from Palo's Global Protect. Dump some potentially useful credentials out of memory on Windows with the PanGP extractor. Now, this is interesting. I'm curious what they're doing on this because... Just because anytime you're going to be reading memory off of a process, it could... Like, if you're on a pen test, it's not such a big deal. If you're on a red team, it can get a tad bit dicey. Now, I guess that's not such a big deal if you're running in the context of that user, because a user process going to do that. I just realized I didn't set the name of the stream for we can update that. Let's see. So on a recent red team engagement, I was poking around, having a look at different files, and trying to see if I could extract any information that would allow me to move laterally through the network. I was hoping I would land on domain admin's passwords 2024 Excel file or something. Don't laugh, we found that file at least once. I can neither confirm nor deny I have found those files. Unfortunately, this time, the file wasn't present on the endpoint that I landed on, so I had to settle for some Palo Alto Global Protect logs instead. Now, this is always, actually, this is a really good point right here. Look at this. So what does he do? He goes to the log files, and this was very critical in the pen test I was just conducting, is we saw critical pieces of information that were redacted in the log files. However, what does that mean? It means that this information is being stored somewhere so it can be checked for redaction. So we did something very similar to this, not with Global Protect, but with a different system where we stole some very critical cryptographic keys out of a process. Password protected Excel files can't be hacked. That's a fact. Oh, my sweet summer child. So it struck me as odd the way the passcode and password were obfuscated. Why would they be different links? Surely they wouldn't just replace each character of the password with an asterisk, because that would mean they would need to know the plain text version. And there really isn't a reason apart from pure laziness to do that. So with that in mind, it was time to fire up x64 debug and see what was going on under the hood. So assuming that the pangp.log was the log file for the pangpa executable, we loaded that into our favorite debugger and have a look at some of the references. Let's see. Let's have a look at those. Out of the three, this is the one that's most interesting. So we see some hex value and the word passcode, which is very interesting because if you look at the log file here, right? The log file was basically like this kind of XML-ish, and where they open and close a passcode variable in here. So makes sense searching for that. Oh, that's hilarious. Look at this. So I picked this one. As you can see the instruction to move the EDX 0x2a, where 0x2a is the asterisk character. So you can see that right here. So what this is saying is it's going to just move that over one byte at a time. Good God. So this is funny. He said, in fact, there's multiple references to the move EDX command instruction in this code section, searching for all the instances for the XML processing. After a lot of digging around, we can start to put a picture together of what's happening. PanGP speaks to PanGPS over port 4767, makes XML-based requests, and receives XML replies. So a typical response might look something like this. Okay, so it gives a very basic explanation of it. We got username, user type. Cool. So you start setting some breakpoints and debugging. Oh, and as soon as he says one of the breakpoints, he immediately starts seeing passwords passing through in the output. Oh Lord. The ones in red are a plaintext password. The full XML response was located in the memory and contained the username as well. I'm shocked. It was also possible to find the deactivation password and the uninstall password. Nice. I cannot see how this is compliant with any current security framework such as NIST or FedRAMP. Oh, too funny. And he's got the Woosah meme. Alright, so what do we do here? So we put together a proof of concept to demonstrate extracting these credentials from memory. Code can be found... Meow. Okay, I'll grab a copy of this for anybody who's got Palo in their environment and wants to go start putting security controls around that. Maybe, you know, you want to just put that process on a sensitive list and start looking to see if anything opens a handle to that process and maybe give that process a little extra scrutiny. Let's see, the code we've got here, but basically we terminate the existing GPA process, attach a newly launched separated GPA process, set a breakpoint, resume, and then read memory at RSI when the breakpoint is triggered. That's a dirty way to do it, but all right. It'd be better, stealthier, and generally cleaner if we spoke directly to the PanGPS itself and impersonated the PanGPA client. This would eliminate the starting and stopping the VPN to extract data. Total downtime is only a few seconds, but still. Users will notice that, acute users. That's still funny, though. I mean, That's hilarious. Yeah, I think that would actually be really cool is if they, and I understand probably why they did it this way. If they were on an active engagement, the ability to develop something that could actually go speak to pan GPA is going to be a lot more difficult than just creating a tool that could set a breakpoint, run it, extract it, and then be good. Still really cool. That's very neat. Ooh. Ooh. Relaying Kerberos over SMB using Curb Relay X. Nice. So without signing enabled, which a lot of places still don't, and with the ability to set a DNS entry in an environment, you can in fact relay Kerberos over SMB. Consider an environment where a vulnerable service allows authentication via Kerberos and you have your use case. So what's really interesting about that is a lot of times, damn, what's that called? It's not dynamic DNS. It's like active dynamic DNS. I forget whatever. But a lot of times in Windows environments, and particularly in Active Directory, you can go set a DNS entry. I think PowerMad will do it. PowerMad. Yeah, let me look at that real quick. Let's see. What's it called? DNS. Yeah, you'll be able to. It's unauthenticated too, Ford. It's like you can literally go talk to the, and that's the default setting. I believe there is a way to restrict it, but there we go. ADI DNS. This function can tombstone the ADI DNS. Oh, let's disable that. So we can enable it. Node attribute, node owner, get permissions, get the zones. Really, DNS tool will let you do. Hold on. DNS tool. Will that let you? Oh, if it's part of Curb Relay X, I'm not surprised then. Yeah. Is this by Dirt Jam? Oh, holy crap, it is. Man, that dude, he puts out some really cool stuff. Let's see. Let's add SPN DNS tool. Add, modify, or delete Active Directory integrated DNS records via LDAP. Yeah. So actually, I think you may have to be authenticated. I think there's a bunch of cases where you can do it unauthenticated. But honestly, if you're doing a red team or even just a pen test, it's pretty easy to either get authenticated or you start authenticated. So, nice. Nice. Good find, Ford. Yeah. And I would recommend probably using that over PowerMad. PowerMad is cool, but man, it's finicky sometimes. Oh no, I closed it. Hold on. Back. All right, let's look at this. Here we go. Hold on. So before we dive into this, just for anybody who doesn't know, let's do a quick. What the hell was that? Hang on one sec, guys. Here. All right, I'm back. Sorry for that brief interruption. My wife is cooking, and it's a giant pan, and she needs a hand. And the alarm just went off saying that's what I was running out to do. Hang on one second. Let me bring up the iPad real fast. All right, so quick reminder for Kerberos. Here's what happens. So let's say you've got a user on a computer, you got a server over here, and you've got a KDC. Or we'll just say a domain controller, because we're going to be talking about this in terms of Active Directory. So what happens is there's 3 phases for Kerberos. So phase 1 is prove who you are. So you're going to send what is it? An AS rec? Yeah. So we're going to send an AS rec, a request, and then we're going to get an AS rep back. So this part right here, I'm going to kind of circle this in blue. This is phase 1, and this gets you a TGT. The TGT is just as good as someone's password. It's a ticket granting ticket. Everything in Kerberos is passed as tickets. And it says, hey, this is me on this computer proving to the domain controller I am who I say I am. And it does it by basically encrypting a timestamp with the user's password hash. The domain controller has a copy of the user's password hash and then realizes, yeah, that's good. It encrypts some data with using a known secret that it has. That is the KRB TGT hash. So the domain controller has its own special little hash that only it knows about, or all the other domain controllers know about. It encrypts some data, sends it back. Now this user has a TGT right here. The next step after that is it will do I think it's an AP rec. Don't quote me on this. I think it's AP rec. An AP request, and then the server, if it passes all the checks, is going to send back an AP response. I think it's AS and AP response. But basically, this second phase here, that's going to get us a TGS. So what's happening in that second phase is, first phase, we prove who we are. Second phase, we say, here's the resource, domain controller, I want to access this resource. Can you get me a ticket to this system? And the DC checks what permissions you've got, sends back a TGS if all the checks pass. And then the last thing here, I'm just going to shortcut this one, but this is actually wherever you talk to the server. So this final phase right here is where you send that TGS. Man, my writing sucks tonight. Hang on. Where you send the TGS, you present it to this system. This TGS is encrypted using the targets. So this server's password hash, DC has a copy of that. And now it says, oh, well, I can decrypt that ticket from this user with my password hash. I know it's legit because the user doesn't know it, but the domain controller knows it, so they got it legit. So that is how this whole thing works. So there's 3 phases right here. First phase is prove who you are to the domain controller. Second phase is to ask the domain controller for a ticket for the resource you want to access. And then the third phase is actually accessing the resource by sending that ticket over to the server. That's it. So what we're going to talk about is ways that we can man in the middle of this and then relay it to other parts. Okay. Let's see. Kerberos relaying is theoretically straightforward. The goal is to relay an AP rec message initiated by a client for one service to another. There is, however, one crucial prerequisite. The target service and client must not enforce encrypting or signing. So as we do not possess the secret, which is the session key, required to perform these operations, so this is similar to an NTLM relay. There's one additional challenge. An AP rec message cannot be relayed to a different service running under a different identity from the one initially requested by the client. So to make the attack successful, we therefore need to force the client to generate an AP rec for the targeted service and send it to us. So here's a visual representation. So first step is client is doing phase 1, get the TGT, right? So we send AS rec and rep down here. So this is for the SIF service, so like for SMB. The client then sends that to the attacker for SIFs at legitimate service. Okay, cool. And then once we send that along, then the attacker sends an AP rec for HTTP at legit service, and then starts a session. All right, so this is going to get deep into Kerberos. I'm going to try and explain it a little bit as best I can, because I understand at the high level, but the bits and the bytes, that's still something I'm trying to shore up in my own knowledge. Let's see. So in 2021, James Forshaw published a long blog post. By the way, James Forshaw is awesome. He is really good with Windows stuff. And if you haven't seen it, this is his Windows Security Internals book, and the whole thing's done in PowerShell. So it's really neat. I'm currently going through it, as you can see. Let's see. Explaining how this could be achieved with various protocols. So then in 2022, Dirkjan published another blog post detailing how this could be accomplished using DNS. So we highly encourage you to read both those articles. Dirkjan demonstrated that using his tools, MIDM6 and Curb Relay X, and a start of authority DNS message, it's possible to poison a client and force it to send an AP rec message for an arbitrary service, which can then be relayed. So an interesting service that meets all these requirements is the ADCS HTTP endpoint, which is by default vulnerable to relay attacks since it does not enforce signing with HTTP. Yeah. So if you have ADCS enrollment, web enrollment enabled, which probably nobody really should. I'm trying to think of a valid use case for that. You want to make sure you're enforcing signing on that. Let's see. So while the attack is effective, it still requires the ability to poison the client with the DHCP v6 message to establish a man-in-the-middle position by advertising oneself as a DNS server. Consequently, it's not possible to poison arbitrary clients. Let's see. He also released a tool called Curb Relay SMB server that can be used to relay Kerberos over SMB using the mentioned cred marshal target info tricks of James Forshaw. Does he talk about that in here? Stand by. I gotta check the index for this. Cred marshal target info. I don't know if he does. Let's see. Oh, he does talk about Credential Guard, though. Credential Guard is actually something I just ran into on this pen test, and it completely foobarred some of my my Kerberos tricks with dumping tickets and whatnot. It was very disconcerting. I've never run into Credential Guard before, but I'm working with a way different caliber of client now. Let's see. He doesn't have it explicitly called out in here, so I'll be interested to see if he goes through that. Let's see. So we're curious to learn more about this and determine if it was possible to use this trick with Curb Relay X. Turns out it's indeed possible. So in his blog post, Forshaw showed that when an SMB client builds the SPN from the service class and name, this particular method is called secmakeSPN EX2. For the hostname file server and the service class SIFs, the return to SPN will look like the following: SIFs, file server 1, servers, blah. I can't get people on board with Eat TLS, so we have to turn Credential Guard off as we use Eat Peep. Oh, bummer. Yeah, dude, Cred Guard. I'd say I'll put together like a formal list of these recommendations that, like, it's gonna be like the top 5 things to do to piss off red teamers. Maybe I'll make that into a video. I've been trying to think of more video ideas for YouTube. I just suck at it because I feel like everything else has already been done. But yeah, there's like 5 things that if you do, you're just going to cause massive headache for a pen tester or a red team, especially when it comes to lateral movement. They might be able to do a privilege escalation, but then the lateral movement can be quite difficult sometimes. Let's see. Okay, so the secmakeSPN function makes a call to an API for cred marshal target info. This API takes a list of target information, marshals it using base64 encoding, and appends it to the end of the real SPN. We also show that if we register a DNS record for this, the client would ask for a Kerberos ticket for SIF's file server, but would connect to file server this. Okay, interesting. So the idea here is they want to connect to the CIFS service on file server. However, if they can fake the rest of this data in here and then register that as a DNS record, it would actually connect to the fake DNS record. Oh. So under the hood, the client will call the cred unmarshaled target info to parse the marshaled target info. However, the client does not consider the unmarshaled results. Instead, it simply determines the length of the marshaled data and removes the portion from the end of the target SPN string. So consequently, when the Kerberos package receives the target name, it's already been restored to the original SPN. We decided to use Frida to set up some hooks to better understand what's happening. So in our lab, there's a domain controller and an ADCS server. We put hooks on the cred marshal target info. I need to learn more about Frida, man. And when forcing the ADS server to authenticate to DC03, we got the following. Okay, so they used Frida on LSAS. Got it. Let's see. Found cred marshal target info. And they got some data back. So from there, first there's a call to the cred unmarshal target info. So they're getting the data back out of the structure they built. The provided unmarshaled buffer is the only service name and class for CIFS DC03. So there's nothing to unmarshal, and it returns this as null. Then the cred marshal is called. This went a lot deeper than I was expecting, but I really want to know what they're doing here. So this is regular behavior. However, when coercing the machine to the DNS record for this long monstrosity of a string, we get the call to cred unmarshaled target info, but this time with the input buffer containing a valid marshal structure. So as a result, the function returns a valid cred target information structure and a cred marshal target info. It's called using that same structure. Interesting. I don't know if you would need direct LAN access. And actually, as you're asking that, I'm trying to think how you might potentially use this over a C2 channel. And I don't know, once I see more of the attack, I'll let you know. But I'm trying to think of how you would actually go affect this over like a C2 agent. I'm thinking about it. I'm not quite sure just yet. There might be a way. Let's finish the article, and once I get to the end, maybe I'll have a better idea. But currently, I don't know yet. Let's see. So this means that if the SPN already contained a marshaled cred target information structure, it will be unmarshaled and used in subsequent calls. Otherwise, the structure will be created. So what do we have here, kids? We have unsanitized input. That's what we have. So as described in the original article, the size limit of a single DNS, a single name in DNS is 63 characters. The minimum valid marshaled buffer is 44 characters long, leaving 19 characters for the SPN part. This is at least larger than the minimum NetBIOS. This is at least larger than the minimum NetBIOS name limit of 15 characters. So as long as there's an SPN for that shorter name registered, it should be sufficient. However, if there's no short SPM name registered, then it's going to be more difficult to exploit. Okay. I'll tell you what, guys. I got to run to the bathroom and go blow my nose and go to the bathroom. And then the ads are about to kick off, so I'm going to kick them off real quick. And then we'll hit this again in just a second. My nose is freaking all of a sudden just like blowing up on me. So I'll be right back, and then we'll continue with the Curb Relay X goodies here. Looks like there's some interesting constraints, so we'll have to figure out what our requirements are for this. Because it looks like we need to have a couple of preconditions to make this work. But anyway, we'll check it out in just a second. Be right back. Right, I'm back. I apologize for all the frequent interruptions. What's behind me? Where do I gotta go? There we go. Oh, it's the arrow. What the hell is on the green screen? All right. So let me read through this again real quick. So what they're saying is, depending on the information we send to the target, if we send a valid structure, it's going to unmarshal it. If we don't, it's going to just take a key piece of data and then create the structure itself. So what we have is unsanitized input. That's what we have. And then we have a couple other limitations here. So we have a 63 byte character limit for DNS. The minimum valid Marshall buffer is 14 characters long. That's going to leave us with 19 characters to mess with. And this is at least larger than the minimum net BIOS name limit of 15. So we're going to have to find something with a net BIOS name between 15 to 19 characters, I think. I use BombGuard religiously, and now I'm contemplating if LDAP was enabled with it. How could this be affected through BombGuard as an entry? Oh, what is BombGuard again? I spelled that wrong. I know BombGuard. Well, that's Beyond Trust. Using it specifically for this, I don't know if there's an exact use case for it, Abs. Mostly because I'm not familiar with BombGuard's internal workings on this. Looks like this is going to be a specific use case they're going to be presenting with, specifically for targeting like SIFs. But let's take a look at it real quick. So to gain some space in DNS, we can build the shortest marshaled string. This can be achieved with Frida by allocating empty credential target information. Okay. So after seeing a tweet from Decoder IT, we wondered if this attack could be executed using Kerb Relay X. So although this tool was not initially designed for relaying Kerberos authentication, DirkGen added that functionality in 2022. The implementation was performed over DNS, but there's already an SMB server in place that supports Kerberos for all unconstrained delegation attacks. Nice. All right, so first, we want to register the malicious DNS record as explained previously. We want to make it point to our attacker machine. So in this case, they're doing everything as if you are attacker on LAN. You're physically connected to the network. So with any coercion technique, we can now force our domain controller to authenticate to us. Okay, so they use Petit Podem. They use the... Oh, so they're using PKI4, and they're using that weird custom... Hey, this is funny, Ford. So he used DNS tool in there to make it happen. Nice. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I always did this through PowerMat, and PowerMat was a little bit of a pain in the ass. Now, I think the downside is, I don't know if DNS tool respects Kerberos. Does it? Hold on. DNS tool. Let me come back up to here. DNS tool. Ooh, it does. If it has that TAC K option. Come on, where's my TAC K? TAC K? TAC K? No TAC K? Oh, did I go right past it? That's for printer bug. Hold on. Let's see. Let's add SPN, DNS tool. Oh, he just doesn't have it in the help down here, but these other ones down here show that use Kerberos authentication. Awesome. Because a lot of times, one thing you want to get used to, if you're doing a lot of red teaming or like advanced pen testing, get used to how to use Kerberos to do that, because that's where the bacon is. Let's see. So by looking at Wireshark, we see a bunch of bits and bytes. We see an AP rec. So the rogue SMB server receives the APREC message indicating that the necessary functionality is already integrated in the tool. Dirkjan made an impressive work of Curb Relay X. I actually got to meet Dirkjan at a training. It was for attacking Azure cloud environments. And super smart guy. Very cool. Very awesome to talk to. This allows us to easily incorporate a few lines of the DNS Kerberos server into an SMB one. All right, let's see. For HTTP, the process is pretty straightforward. The APREC is base64 encoded and included with the authorization header. Kerberos, base64 APREC. Nice. So then we set up Curb Relay X. We put in our target. PKI4 was their ADCS server. And we tell it what the template is, which is domain controller. And then I don't know what this value is here. But anyway, they set it up. We received a connection from 172.16.1.3, which I assume is the DNS controller. Generated a CRS and got a certificate. Cool. Very neat. I'm going to save this one. Maybe we can work on that one in the lab. Because that would be really neat to do. I think I need to go make sure the web enrollment is set up in the ADCS lab. That'd be kind of neat. Okay, so this was set up as a pull request. Nope, go back. Actually, it was set up as a pull request. Looks like Dirkjan already merged it. Merged it in. I think implementing the SMB client was something of a future work, which kind of thing I originally released with the tool. So I think your assessment is correct that the SMB relay client is simply the client for NTLM Relay X without actual Kerberos support. Yeah, cool. Awesome. So this is actually already live over in Curb Relay X. So you don't even have to go get the fork. You can just go get Curb Relay X. Nice. Very nice. That'd be neat. I really want to go dig into that because I want to know what's the operational steps for that. Because if you think about it, I classify knowledge into 3 categories. You've got a prerequisite knowledge, which is like just a basic understanding of something. You have a theoretical knowledge of what could be done by going a little bit deeper. But then once you get past the theoretical knowledge, you have what I call operational knowledge, which is, hey, here's actually how I put this theoretical attack into effect and make it work. Nice. Uh-oh. What is this one? This is when Guardians become predators, how malware corrupts the protectors. Another example of traitorware in action. What is traitorware? Wow, that's a new term for me. Iscariot, this is something from Bad Sector Labs. Iscariot Suite's a collection of tools to enhance and augment trusted open source and commercial blue team sysadmin products, turning them into traitorware to achieve offensive security goals. Oh! Nice. I've never heard the term traitorware, and I love it. The Iscariot Suite takes its name from the famous Judas Iscariot. Iscariot Suite was discussed in the presentation, Stop Writing Malware, the blue team has done it for you. And I'll be honest with you, that's one of my favorite things to do. There's a couple of high-value targets, like if I'm on an open penetration test with just, hey, go get DA, and those are those are CI/CDs specifically. After that, dev environments. After that, security systems, because a lot of times the security teams don't follow their own best practices, and if you get access to the security system, a lot of times you just get access to the entire kingdom. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. So Iscariot Splunk. This uses Splunk's native features to act as a full-blown command and control framework. The agent component is possible by installing the Splunk Universal Forwarder. The server component is the standard Splunk Enterprise server. Oh, that's funny. Let's see. Iscariot OS Query. This uses the OS Query extension. A user can execute binary shell commands, unmodified Cobalt Strike BOFs, and C# assemblies in memory. The extension runs as its own process, but a child of the digitally signed OS Query D. Oh, dude. I've been using BombGuard for about 6 years now and spent the last 3 trying to attack it to see if I can get into it. It's based on a custom Gen 2 image, but it's used by all the major companies. So I'll tell you one thing, Abs. I had a buddy who was very, very good at binary exploitation, and he said the only system he could never get binary exploits to run on was Gen 2 hardened. Keep in mind, he told me this like 12 years ago. Yeah, probably 12 years ago. 12, 14 years ago. But that has stuck with me, that was the only one he couldn't get into was Gen 2 hardened from the way it runs. That's hilarious. It's scary, it's sweet. Alright, so what did they do for this one? This is from Trellix. Let's see. So when Guardians become predators, how malware corrupts the protectors. So we often trust our security infrastructure to stand as an unbreakable wall against malware and attacks, but what happens when that very wall is weaponized against us? Our Trellix Advanced Research Center team recently uncovered a malicious campaign that does just that. Instead of bypassing defenses, this malware takes a more sinister route. It drops a legitimate Avast anti-rootkit driver and manipulates it to carry out its destructive agenda. The malware exploits the deep access provided by the driver to terminate security processes, disable protective software, and seize control of the infected system. Are they just doing a bring your own vulnerable driver? I want to know, is this driver just vulnerable, or are they legit putting it in? What makes this even more alarming is the level of trust associated with kernel mode drivers, designed to protect the system at its core, which in this case are being turned into tools of destruction. In the following sections, we break down how this malware operates and reveal the inner workings of a campaign that corrupts the very defenses it should protect. Nice. Let's see. So how it begins, the infection chain. The malware, killfloor.exe, infection chain begins by dropping a legitimate advanced anti-rootkit driver. Malware drops a legitimate kernel driver as ntfs.bin in the Microsoft Windows App Data folder. It's a highly customized Gen 2 hardened, and I know nothing is realistically bulletproof, but I've yet to find a way, and I'm sure one day someone will. Yeah, that was the one he told me about. It's like, hey, if he said Gen 2 hardened, he couldn't get shit happen. Alright, so let's see what they've got. So Killfloor drops that Avast anti-root kernel driver, registers it as a service, compares active processes to a hard-coded list of security products. Upon finding a match, it sends an IO control along with a process ID to the Avast antivirus rootkit driver, instructing it to terminate the process. And it just keeps going in a loop. Boom. So don't you normally, even if you're loading a kernel mode driver, have to have system level access to it? I mean, so you would have already had to have landed on the box and gotten system level access and escalated your permissions. So instead of using a specially crafted driver to perform its malicious activities, the malware uses a trusted kernel driver, giving it an air of legitimacy and allowing it to avoid raising alarms while preparing to undermine the system's defenses. So once the legitimate kernel driver is dropped, the malware uses service control to create a service that registers the driver for further actions. Okay, so they create it. The type is kernel. Bin path is that ntfs.bin. So with the driver installed and running, the malware gains... Ow! It just hit my knee. Ow. Oh. Alright, so with the driver installed and running, the malware gains kernel-level access to the system, providing it with the ability to terminate critical security processes and take control of the system. Right. Let's see. Manipulating target processes, killing all these things. So weaponizing kernel privileges and how the driver works. So at its core, the driver operates at the kernel level, granting the malware unrestricted access to the most critical parts of the operating system. Here's how the high-privileged component wreaks havoc. The malware initially defines several variables stored in the process of well-known antivirus and EDR solutions. The malware contains the following list of 142 hard-coded processes. Nice. The initial function drops the Avast rootkit driver into this app data local Windows directory. then installs it as a service using the command line utility for SC. Once the antivirus or the anti-rootkit driver is installed, the service is created, the malware enters an infinite loop, taking snapshots of the actively running processes on the system. Your desk has my condolences. Actually, so when I'm standing here, a lot of times I'm doing either the Captain Morgan or the Riker maneuver, depending on how you look at it. I've got this little chair here. And I've got a leg propped up on it. I'm usually just standing on one leg. And I find it much easier to stand for a long period of time like that. But I was repositioning my foot, banged my knee into that chair. Thankfully, the chair only weighs like 4 ounces because it's a cheap IKEA chair, but I still got it right on the corner. Let's see. Alright, so after successfully taking the snapshots of the running processes, the malware retrieves process information of all processes on the system and then compares each process to the hard-coded list. If the process name matches, the malware creates a handle to reference the installed Avast driver. Hold on, so if the process name matches, the malware creates a handle to reference the installed Avast driver. Oh, I guess it's hitting a particular name pipe? So once the handle to the Avast driver is created, the malware calls the device IO control API and passes this particular value along with the process ID. So since kernel mode drivers can override user mode processes, the Avast driver is able to terminate processes at the kernel level, effortlessly bypassing the tamper protection mechanisms of most antivirus and EDR solutions. Now, one downside to this is, and if an attacker is constantly killing your EDR and it doesn't check in, then that could be a big red flag too. So if you're monitoring your EDR logs, you want to make sure that you have 2 separate systems where you can make a composite log. Is the system still online and checking in to some other non-security related system? And then do all of a sudden the security tools stop receiving check-ins? And if you start seeing a large delta between, hey, maybe Intune is still receiving check-ins, right? But our let's see, what's a good EDR? Like maybe CrowdStrike. And I just thought of CrowdStrike because I've got one of their stupid hats right here. It's not stupid. It's just a CrowdStrike. Anyway, maybe CrowdStrike stops checking in. Once you start seeing the diff between those two, maybe you realize, hey, something has happened to the EDR on this system. All right, so the IO trigger. So the anti-rootkit driver interprets that control as a command to terminate the specified security process that is passed by the malware alongside the code. Upon decompiling and disassembling the rootkit driver for research purposes, the function reveals that the driver utility Windows kernel functions KE attach process and ZW terminate process to terminate the security process. By the way, if you're ever looking at Windows APIs, if you see KE or ZW as a precursor, those are the kernel mode equivalent to the other Windows APIs, like the Win32, whatever. So these are the kernel, basically the kernel level of these other common API calls, and it just has less restrictions to it. All right, big code dump. All right, so preventing driver-based attacks. So a key method to safeguard systems from attacks leveraging vulnerable drivers such as Avast. Yep, using the good old bring your own vulnerable driver attack. The attack exploit legitimate but vulnerable drivers to gain kernel-level access, allowing malware to bypass security software. To counter this, expert rules can be deployed to identify and block specific vulnerable drivers based on their unique signatures or hashes. For example, by utilizing the BYOVD expert rule below, which detects and prevents execution of compromises for drivers. Yeah. And so this is one of those reasons why, especially, that would also be a very key log you'd want to have. Hey, a new driver was just registered on a device. I guess the expert rules is a Trellis specific item. That's interesting. I thought it was funny that they built this up as some big thing, but initially I was like, reading the intro, I was like, this is a bring your own vulnerable driver situation here. Yep. Do that one. Okay, let's see here. Another one for the traderware. From Guardian to Gateway, hidden risks of EDR vulnerabilities. Actually, what is this one? So this time, 2 exploits for the popular open source endpoint detection and response EDR, Wuzza. I've been meaning to put Wuzza into the AD lab. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. This is an interesting report. I'm going to copy it, but I'm not going to read it over. This is a really neat one especially if you want to look more into binary attacks. This was Google trying to use AI to help with fuzzing. It was a neat read, but it was a bit dry. Oh yeah, this is a really cool one. So if you're not familiar with Bark, that's the Bloodhound Attack Research Kit. Is that it? Okay. Yeah, Bloodhound Attack Research Kit. It's a series of PowerShell scripts that you can use. Here, hold on. Let's just read the instruction. It's a PowerShell script built to assist Bloodhound Enterprise team with researching and continuously validating abuse primitives. Bark is currently focused on Microsoft's Azure suite of products and services. So, if you're not familiar with Bark, it's a really cool toolkit. Why do you keep going back to that one? Come back to here. No, Medium. Nobody wants to buy things. All right. Another one by SpectreOps. So this is Azure Key Vault Tradecraft with Bark. This post details existing and new functions in Bark that support adversarial tradecraft research relevant to Azure Key Vault services. Now, this is actually something I'm not familiar with, so let me see what they said about it. The latter part of the post shows an example of how red team operators may use these commands during the course of an assessment. All right. I gotta get a new mouse. This one will scroll for shit. Let's see. So Azure Key Vault is one of the few services in Azure that is dedicated API for data plane operations. When performing calls to the Azure REST API and the Azure Key Vault REST API, you must provide authentication in the form of a bearer token. Tokens must have the correct audience. Bark has the following functions for requesting tokens for use with the Azure REST API. So we have a get Azure RM token with username and password, with portal auth refresh, with client credentials, and just with a refresh token. Bark has the following functions for requesting tokens also. So we have Azure Key Vault token with a username and password, or with some other client credentials. Let's see. And they have some functions for enumerating these key vaults. So you have a list of them. And we have persistence mechanisms. Bark also has functions for manipulating permissions on key vaults and key vault items via the Azure REST API. Now, one of the cool things about that is if you can go get into these key vaults and maybe put in a backdoor, that's what he's talking about right here, these persistence. You just go put a backdoor into it and then bam, you can have regular access to it. Yeah. I don't know why my nose is giving me such trouble tonight. Let's see. Also, Bark has a function for collecting key vault secret values via that REST API. And for doing encryption and decryption. All right, here we go. An example walkthrough showcasing these functions. So during a red team assessment, the operator may find they have read access into one or more Azure Resource Manager subscriptions, giving them the ability to enumerate resources in the subscription. The operator wants to find all key vaults under a given subscription. So first they have to request a token with the ARM REST API as the audience. I know this is Azure Resource Manager, but I can't help but think of the process. All right, so there's several ways to do this depending on what level of access the operator has. You'll go into a simple example. So let's say the operator has a plain text credential for a valid user. So with those credentials, the operator can use Bark's get Azure token with username and password to request the token. Real simple here. Next, the operator can identify all subscriptions that have read access into with Bark's get the RM subscriptions. We get a list of all this. So we get a token, then we get a list of all the subscriptions. And we find the key vaults with each subscription. We can use PowerShell to loop through each of the subscriptions and pass its ID to Bark to get the value. Nice. So now the operator can attempt to enumerate secrets, keys, and certificates under each key vault. However, the Azure Key Vault REST API serves these operations, so they first get a token with the correct audience. Yeah. Hey, Marky, what's up, man? Happy Sunday, dude. It's all I do, man, Marky. Just mashing buttons. All right, so once we have So, okay, so what they're doing is now they're getting a token with the correct audience that we need in here. Let's see. So now the operator can use that token in conjunction with Bark's key vault item enumeration function to list all the items under each key vault. Very cool. So here's an example of what these key vaults look like. So it might say application PKCS12. And what do we have? We have attributes to it. Oh, so this is a list of certificates, which could be pretty bad. So the operator can attempt to read the value of the secret also using Bark. Just get the key secret value. Where was secret 1 up here? I'm just trying to map this together in my head. I guess as a more concrete example. So what we get is we get the value, secret value 1, we get the ID, a bunch of other stuff. So I guess that's the actual secret. Oh, secret value is the plain text value of the secret. Okay. This is something this is a part of Azure's environment I'm not familiar with. So this is all new to me. We can also attempt to encrypt data used in the key vault keys. Ooh. Not sure what you'd use that for. We can also decrypt that data like that. All right, so key vault certificate stores their public portion within the certificate object and their private portion within a secret. So the operator can correlate the certificate and the secret identity to identify certificate pairs. So right here, it says the ID is my certificate. Okay, so they look through the certificates, then they look through the vault secrets, and they match it where the ID is my certificate. Gotcha. Gotcha. So once identified, the operator can attempt to extract the certificate's private key with the get Azure RM key vault secret value function. These are some long-ass function names. Cool. So what is this? I mean, depending on what the certificate is used for, Azure role-based authentication. You can use certificates to authenticate to Azure, so maybe these are Azure authentication certificates. Not sure. Kind of neat though. Yeah. So. Let's see. What is this content type? I'm actually not familiar with this. Imports certificate API for Azure Key. I'm type IO. What is this? Oh, this is for P12 and PFX files. Got it. Okay. PFX files is what you use in Windows land for certificates. Okay. I haven't had a chance to use that yet, but I'm still getting started. Let's see. The nearest neighbor attack. How a Russian APT weaponized nearby Wi-Fi networks for covert access. Yeah, this was a wild one. I actually read about this one. I didn't read directly about it, but I got the gist of it from a buddy of mine. Let's see. So the key takeaways. So I can blow this up anymore. Oh, nice. All right, so Russian APT Gruesome Larch deployed a new attack technique leveraging Wi-Fi networks in close proximity to the intended target. So a threat actor primarily leveraging living off the land techniques. A zero-day privilege escalation was used to gain further access. RIP, that's burned. Ukrainian-related work and projects were targeted in this attack just ahead of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So in early February 2022, Velocity made a discovery that led to one of the most fascinating and complex incident investigations Velocity had ever worked. The investigation began when an alert from a custom detection signature that had been deployed at a customer's site, called Organization A in this report, indicated the threat actor had compromised a server on the customer's network. So they quickly investigated the threat activity. More questions were raised than answers due to a very motivated and skilled APT who was using a novel attack vector that they had not previously encountered. At the end of the investigation, they would tie the breach to a Russian threat actor it tracks as Gruesome Larch, publicly known as APT-28. Force, aka Forest Blizzard, aka So Fancy, aka Fancy Bear. Love these names. They further determined that Gruesome Larch was actively targeting Organization A in order to collect data from individuals with expertise on and projects actively involving Ukraine. That's kind of a wide swath of what part of Ukraine. The month-and-a-half-long investigation revealed that Gruesome Larch was able to ultimately breach Organization A's network by connecting to their enterprise Wi-Fi network. The threat actor accomplished this by daisy-chaining their approach to compromise multiple organizations in close proximity to the intended target. This was done by a threat actor who was thousands of miles away and an ocean apart from the victim. So Velocity is unaware of any terminology describing the style attack and dubbed it the nearest neighbor attack. So given the assumed physical distance, you may be wondering how exactly this threat actor was able to authenticate to their Wi-Fi enterprise. The first most obvious thing needed were valid credentials. This was accomplished via password spray attacks against a public-facing service in Organization A's network to validate credentials. And while credentials could be validated, they could not be used against Organization A's public services due to the implementation of MFA. This is what I was talking about earlier. I mean, MFA is really good to have, but you also need to know where your blind spots are, because not every service will enforce MFA. So the enterprise Wi-Fi network, however, didn't require MFA and only required users' valid domain, username, and password to authenticate. Meanwhile, the threat actor was halfway around the world and could not actually connect to the organization. Yeah, we get it. We get it. Get to the good stuff. The threat actor worked to compromise other organizations who were building within close proximity to Organization A's office. Their strategy was to breach another organization and then move laterally within that organization to find systems they could access that were dual-homed, i.e. having both wired and wireless network connections. Nice. So once successful in this endeavor, having found a system that was connected to the network via a wired Ethernet connection, the threat actor would then access the system and use its Wi-Fi adapter. At this point, they would connect to the SSID of Organization A and authenticate to it, thus granting them access to the network. Yep. That's funny. I mean, it's really cool, actually. The idea is pretty damn neat. So the idea is here. This is widgets.co. They compromise widgets.co. They find a machine that has both a hardwire and a wireless NIC, and then they see if they can connect to the adjoining company's Wi-Fi. And this actually could be really easy if they found another company like in the same building, because then they'd be even closer to it, right? To just jump floors. This is showing across the street, which is kind of unlikely, but the illustration still stands. That's a lot for that's a long range for Wi-Fi. Let's see. So then they just go into like what they were doing. They run into some dead ends. Let's see. I wonder what this local privilege escalation. Let's see. Tradecraft notes. Okay, so Gruesome Larch predominantly adopted a living off the land approach during their intrusion, leveraging standard Microsoft protocols and moving laterally. That's the way I like to do it. Let's see. They use cipher.exe. So during the intrusion, the attacker removed files they created, making use of inbuilt Windows tool cipher.exe that ships with every modern version. So what does this do? It displays or alters the encryption of directories on NTFS partitions. Let's see. The following functionality was used to overwrite deleted data in a particular folder. So to overwrite deleted data on a volume using Cypher, use the /w switch Cypher command. Let's see. So you quit all your programs. You do start run command. You run Cypher /w to the directory, and then press enter. Where directory is any folder in the volume that you want to clean. So for example, if you just give it C, command causes all deallocated space on the drive C to be overwritten. Okay, so they were deleting their stuff, and then they were using Cypher to wipe the disk. That's what they were doing. Let's see, they used volume shadow service to dump the ntds.det. Okay, staging the data for exfiltration. The majority of the data from this incident was copied back to the attacker's systems, which was connected to the Wi-Fi. However, in a few cases, they observed the attacker staging data in directories on a public-facing web server. And that's how they were just exfiltrated via download. Gotcha. and they go through attribution. That's pretty cool, though. Hopping Wi-Fi networks like that. Let's see. Look at something. This was techniques and write-ups. Let's see. Lateral movement on Mac OS. Body vulnerabilities in Clip SP. Not really interested in that. Alright, any other cool tools and exploits? Hannibal is an x64 Windows agent written in a fully positioned independent C plus a tiny bit of C. What's it do? Agent for what, though? Oh, this is for Mythic. Ooh, nice. Nice. Hannibal's an x64 Windows agent written fully in position independent C. It's based off of the Stardust template created by Spider. This is the guy who wrote Havoc C2. Very young guy, too. I think he's 19 or 20 and just banging it, man. Talk about benefits of a misspent youth. Let's see. Dang, that's pretty small. The bin is 45 kilobytes. It's modular. Can select and remove commands to compile into the agent. Can be reduced down to 25 kilobytes. Focuses on initial foothold abilities and providing an entire armada of functionality. So what kind of... Oh, here we go. So commands that we've got. Let's see. Agent info, cd, copy, execute. Execute to create process for the given process string. This is interesting. Execute hbin. Opens a modal so you can upload and execute an hbin. What an hbin is. IP info, list drives, move PS, sleep, who am I, upload, download. So this would be, like you were saying, this is a good initial access payload. Like, you get this in there so that you can go through and launch your more advanced agents. Only works with the HTTP profile, looks like. But that's cool. I want to kind of play with that. I'm going to put that one on the back burner, too. Oh, looks like there was a remote code execution in 7-zip. Decompression integer underflow remote code execution. Is it really remote code, though, if they execute it? Like, well, let's see what it says. This vulnerability allows a remote attacker to execute arbitrary code on affected installations of 7-zip. Interaction with this library is required to exploit the vulnerability, but attack vectors are vary depending on the implementation. Let's see. This specific flaw exists within the implementation of the Z standard compression. Issue results in a lack of proper validation for user-supplied data, which can result in an integer underflow before writing into memory. Yeah, but how do they trigger it? Like, are they having to open a malicious zip file? Because then it's not a remote code execution. It is code execution, don't get me wrong, but it's not remote code execution. Let's see. All right, let's look at the last couple of things here before we wrap up for tonight. It's getting a little bit. Let's see. The elusive global rat. Story behind the most secretive and mysterious Linux backdoor found in government infrastructures. Interesting, not terribly interesting. Patchwright, let's see. Patchwright Python is a patched and undetected version of the Playwright testing and automation framework. It can be used as a drop-in replacement for Playwright. Defender Yara and... Oh, this is interesting. vmplex.ws. So I usually am crapping all over Hyper-V. I want to like Hyper-V, but it is so damn unuser-friendly. Maybe this guy could make it a little bit interesting. Because if you didn't know, if you have WSL2 enabled on your Windows system, you're running Hyper-V. What happens is Hyper-V actually becomes the base operating system, and then you're being presented the Windows VM running in Hyper-V, and that's what you're interacting with. See, they got any pictures of it? I want to see how it looks. Interesting. This might make it a little more interesting. I am also gun-shy about Hyper-V because I severely broke the networking on one of my work laptops by having to set up a Windows VM in Hyper-V. WSL3 is supposed to be way better and not use Hyper-V. Ooh, are they working on WSL3? WSL3 release date. Let's see. That'd be pretty cool. I wonder how they're going to get around that, though, if they're not using Hyper-V. as far as I know, on Windows 11, you're running it anyways. Core is always using part of Hyper-V. I don't know if that's true, Big Doggy, because I'm about to try and disable core isolation. I don't know. I'm about to try and disable Hyper-V on my work laptop, which is running Windows 11, and I'll let you know. And one of the things that I really hate about it is occasionally when I do need to run a local VM, I'm doing it with VMware, like VMware Workstation. And VMware Workstation does not like to play well with Hyper-V, or if you have Credential Guard enabled. Teaching myself Hyper-V after using ESXi for 5 years. Proxmox isn't viable for our business environments. I really like Proxmox, and you're right. I don't know how viable it really is for large enterprises. The server that I use here, whenever I'm showing it off on the stream, is running Proxmox. We're using Ludus, which is an overlay onto Proxmox. But I've been using Proxmox, probably since 2017. That was what I used to run my entire home infrastructure off of. Let's see. Oh, so Windows will show it as disabled, but VMware says it still doesn't have hardware access. RIP. RIP. Big Ducky, why you gotta come shit on all my favorite things? So are they... This didn't answer the question, though. Let's see what they say over at Hacker News. I'm curious about this now. This was from... Oh, shit, this is old. This is from 2021. I do HIPAA and everything is Windows-based. I'm all for mixing Linux into the environment, but no one else is. Yeah, a lot of people don't. And what's really sad is, I mean, Linux can be really cool. It has its own set of security issues that you have to contend with. I was wondering when WSL3 might be coming out. I mean, this looks interesting, but honestly, I hate Hyper-V so much. I don't really hate it. I just dislike it. In the back of Forshaw's Windows Security Internals book, he's got directions on how to build an AD lab in Hyper-V. And I actually built an equivalent lab to it in Ludus. So if you go to the BlazeBits GitHub, over here in Ludicrous ranges, this is a constant work in progress. Some of these are in perfect working condition, some of them aren't. But over here in the Windows Internals PowerShell AD lab, this one, this is the entire lab that was built up in the back in the appendix of this book, and we just built it in Ludus. So there's directions here on how to get it set up, what you need to, how you need to configure it, and then build and deploy it. And it deploys right like 99% of the time. Hell, Linux does SMB better than Windows does SMB. Wouldn't surprise me. Freaking Windows. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. Let's see who else is on InfoSec streams. Nobody, because Tyler had to go and do a short stream. Thanks, Tyler. All right, let me see. Let's see who else we can find to potentially raid out to. By the way, if you hop on the Discord and you don't get the human role, just DM me. It should, once you go through the little onboarding steps, it should be fairly obvious, but if you don't get it, just let me know. Let's see, who else do we have here? We got somebody doing the advent of code. Hey, Nerduino is actually on. We could go raid Nerduino. That dude's funny. He's always talking about cool space stuff, which is always just so much fun. Let's see. Got somebody making a game called Booty Keepers. Let's see. Let's see who's over in the same category that we got. Let's see. Phenom's on. We could go raid Time Enjoyed. Doing an advent of code. At least doing some coding. Alright, so do we raid Time Enjoyed or Nerduino? Want to do space or coding? That's the question. Which one? I'll tell you, we'll go ahead and go raid over Time Enjoyed. I haven't raided her. Oh. We'll get that started up. Dude, I loved Zip Disk back in the day. They are 3.5. 3.5 floppies. That's what they are. That's what I had in mind anyway. They could be Zip Disk. I freaking loved Zip Disk back in the day. Dude, I loved it. I had a Zip Disk way back when they first came out. All right, well, that's where we're gonna wrap it up tonight. Again, I apologize about no stream last night. If I can squeeze in another stream this week, I will. We'll do some fun stuff in the AD lab, and I'll send out a notice on Discord about it. But all you guys and gals have a freaking wonderful week coming up. We got a couple more weeks till we start the Christmas cool down, and I just want y'all to get after it. Remember, Mondays is the day for going hard, because then we can get ready for everything coming up in them. And don't get a case of the Mondays. Those are forbidden. They are punishable by flogging. I miss Mac OS 8.5. Nobody misses Mac OS 8.5. I didn't even use Mac back then. But anyway, guys, I want y'all to have a fantastic week. Get after it. Crush it. Carry blue team, carry the logs. Red team, carry the boats. We'll get through this. Everyone, y'all have a fantastic week. And I want y'all to remember one thing. I love you. Peace.